Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Board of Selectmen, meeting on Monday, June 19th, 2017, 7:15 p.m. in the Selectmen's Chambers. President Woodrow Wilson once said, "If a dog will not come to you after having looked you in the face, you should go home and examine your conscience." We're all very sad. He was, of course, talking about that sixth sense that a lot of dogs possess, where they know who's good and who's bad and who's on the up and up. And I know that a lot of us in the community were very saddened to hear of the loss of our much prized canine on the Arlington Police Department, Dasty, this weekend. Dasty, along with his partner, Officer Mike Hogan, protected presidents, participated in drug and weapons apprehensions of criminal suspects, and was known by school children throughout this town. I know it will be very much missed. So our condolences go out to the Arlington Police Department, especially to Officer Hogan, and to all who were touched by Dasty. We know that it was proof that there is indeed a very strong human-animal bond that defies our explanation. So with that said, we're going to move on first to the consent agenda for this evening. The consent agenda first up, minutes of meetings, June 5th, 2017. Reappointment to the Minuteman School Committee, Arlington Representative Sue Scheffler, term July 1st to 2017 to June 30th, 2020. For approval, Arlington International Film Festival banners, April L. Rank, Executive Director, AIFF. Request special one-day beer and wine license 62417 at 20 Westminster Avenue for 20 Westminster Goes into Construction Dance Party, Pamela Hallett, Housing Corporation of Arlington, and appointment of new election worker, Elaine Davey, 134 Lake Street, unenrolled, Precinct 6. Do I hear a motion?
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Dunn. Do we have anybody here who wish to speak to any of these items? Hearing none. Any questions or comments by members of the board? Yeah,
I'll be
Mr. Byrne.
abstaining from the minutes of meetings from June 5th, as I was not able to attend.
Okay, Mr. Byrne will be abstaining from that portion of the vote. So we'll first vote on the minutes of the meetings. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Okay, and the rest of the consent agenda, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you very much. With the board's consent, I'm going to take one item out of order. We do have a quick public service announcement from our library director, Andrea Nicolai, about an initiative that has actually already begun at the libraries. If you want to come up to the microphone and tell us a bit about it.
Thank you very much. So my name is Andrea Nicolai. I'm Director of Libraries. I brought a statement so I wouldn't miss anything. Thank you for having me tonight. So as you may know, we're embarking on a reimagining our libraries project to look at the spaces in the Fox Library and the Robbins Library. The library and the Board of Trustees have hired Ann Beha Architects to conduct this building program and space study. And Ann Beha Architects are the firm that actually was involved with the Cambridge Public Library renovation addition, which, as you may know, involved looking at a beautiful historic space and renovating it for 21st century library use. The lead architect happens to live in Arlington as well. His name is Philip Chen, so we're happy to have him on the project. Right now we're in the visioning stage, engaging the community through an online survey and a paper survey available in the library, as well as 2 public meetings. So the first public meeting took place last Tuesday at the Fox Branch Library, and the next meeting takes place on Wednesday at the Robbins Library at 7 p.m. So we're inviting all members of the community, as well as anyone interested in improving library spaces and looking at ways that we can better support the needs of the community, to attend these meetings. And I'm really thrilled with the process so far. We can definitely do better. The library is much admired in Arlington, but there's always ways that we can improve. And we have the resources to do so. So we're excited to look at the library spaces again after about 30 years. And the foundation plans to launch, the Arlington Libraries Foundation, plans to launch a capital campaign in the spring, and we'll also be looking to grants from our friends groups as well as private gifts from the community. So I'm very excited about it. If you'd like to track the progress of the project, please check the library's website and sign up for the general e-newsletter. So thank you for your time and for having me here tonight.
Thank you very much. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Thank you very much for all your efforts
Thank you.
to this, and we'll look forward to seeing the
Move
results.
receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Seconded? Second, okay.
And if I could, I just want to say, I bring my 3-year-old grandson who lives in Waltham to the library, and we were there again this Saturday, and he said, Arlington's much better than Waltham. Because this past Saturday, they had the Play-Doh and the Lego station, and I remember being down there, and those programs are so well attended, first getting in, and then once you were down there. So this certainly is timely, because I know you're looking at all facets in terms of every space and how it can be done better. But my grandson John thinks Arlington's better than Waltham.
Well, thank you, grandson John. I was happy to be at Waltham.
Thank you, Ms. Nicolai.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion to receive. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Great. Thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to public hearings. The first item on the agenda, which was a National Grid petition on Wright Street, has actually been withdrawn
Move to
for
table.
technical reasons. Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Mahan to table.
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Byrne. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? It's unanimous, and it is tabled. Okay. Next up on the agenda, we have alcohol compliance hearings. As the board knows, we do have periodic compliance checks that are conducted of all restaurants and stores which are selling alcoholic beverages in town. The police department works in conjunction with the Arlington Youth Health and Safety Coalition on this effort. We will have 4 establishments to deal with this year, well, so far in the last round, but 3 this evening is my understanding. The order of these hearings is going to be as follows. First, Mr. Heim and Inspector Porcello are going to give introductory background on the compliance operations for us, and then we will proceed with some questions of each establishment one by one in the order that they appear on the agenda. So with that, I'd recognize Attorney Heim and Inspector Porcello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board knows from my memorandum of June 13, 2017, the Arlington Police Department conducted 3 rounds of alcohol compliance checks on a total of 33 Arlington establishments licensed to serve alcohol, 27 restaurants, 1 theater, and 5 package stores on or about February 27th, February 28th, and March 8th. The good news is, of course, that the overwhelming majority of those establishments passed their compliance check without a problem. We did, however, have 4 alleged violations, 2 package stores and 2 restaurants. We're here tonight to determine whether 3 of those establishments, Duet, Zoo's Garden, and Arlington Liquors, to your satisfaction, in fact, violated Chapter 138, the regulations of the ABCC, or this board's alcohol compliance policies. And if this board finds that they did so violate any laws or regulations regarding alcohol service, to affix a penalty as the board deems appropriate. I'll give a brief summary in the interest of efficiency of the basic evidence in these matters. These compliance checks are routinely conducted by the police department using juvenile operatives in a process that Inspector Porcello will describe in further detail. In this case, each time the operatives went and bought alcohol, these operatives are all under the age of 21. They were immediately notified, the police department immediately notified the license holder that a violation had taken place, collected any evidence such as alcohol that was purchased, and retained it. All the information that the board needs is contained within the police department's very thorough reports, and I thank Officer Porcello for such diligent documenting of these incidents. Per this board's alcohol policy and regulations, First-time violations for underage service are typically punishable by a 3 to 5 day suspension. However, this board retains discretion to impose some other type of penalty or a greater penalty as it deems appropriate. In affixing penalties for sales to underage individuals, the board can consider the licensee's policies and procedures and the application of those policies and procedures to guard against service to underage individuals, the severity and type of offense, efforts made to identify purchasers of alcohol, the appearance of the underage purchaser of alcohol, the quality of the evidence of a violation, and the circumstances of the case, as well as the number and nature of the licensee's previous violations. Once the board makes a determination, whether it finds a violation or doesn't, I will draft a decision for your approval, and any penalties will be enforced after that written decision is approved by this board. So with that, I'm going to turn to Officer Porcello. I'll ask him a few questions, and then he'll describe the operation himself in detail, and the board will have an opportunity to ask Inspector Porcello some questions as well. Before we get started, does the board have any administrative questions? Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
Inspector Porcello, thank you for being with us here tonight. How long have you been in service of the Arlington Police Department?
Good evening. 10 years.
And in those 10 years, how long have you been conducting alcohol compliance checks?
I believe it's been the last 4.
And what's the general purpose of conducting these alcohol compliance checks?
We want to be sure that the businesses in town that have been given licenses to sell or serve alcohol are following the laws and not serving to the underage kids in this town or others.
Thank you. Can you please describe how the operation generally works?
Sure. So with the assistance of the coalition, we obtained generally 2 underage operatives. In this case, we had 2 17-year-olds, 1 male, 1 female. The same 2 operatives are with us all 3 nights. They come in. The coalition provides us with cash to use during the operation. We photograph them. We breath test them before and after the operation. We take possession of any money or personal identification that they have on them. We secure that within the police department. They provide us with parental release forms, and we provide them with a copy of our recommended guidelines. We ask that they read it, understand it, and then sign it. And then we go out and we conduct the checks on various businesses.
Inspector, can you describe for the board very briefly what the guidelines within the operation consist of?
Yeah, just some examples would be the operatives aren't to go in or exit an establishment while we're not in view, so we have to be able to see that. We need to go in and inform the business that there was a violation after the violation, not wait days or hours. They have to use money provided by the police department. They can't use their own cash. The parents have to be on board. I don't know every guideline. I apologize, but that's the gist of it.
Thank you. And can you describe the outcome of
Yeah.
the operation on February 27th, February 28th, and March 8th of this year?
Sure, yes. We ended up with 4 violations. On the 27th, the first violation, I believe, was Zoo Garden. Then we had a violation at Duet. And the following evening, we had 2. But just for tonight, we'll only talk about the first one, which was the Arlington Liquor Store on Summer Street.
And officer, can you describe these violations? What were the violations specifically?
Yes, sir. So Zoo Garden, the 2 operatives went in. They came out shortly thereafter. They had told us that they sat down at a table. They were served 2 beers from a female Asian in black clothing. They gave us the receipt, the change from the purchase. Myself and Detective Sergeant Gallagher, who was working with me on all 3 nights, went inside the restaurant, spoke to the manager. The manager then brought us to the server, and she acknowledged that she had, in fact, completed the purchase. And it should be noted that there was nobody else in the restaurant at the time.
Inspector, may I interrupt
Yes.
briefly? Just to be crystal clear,
Yes.
these 2 operatives were under the age of 21, correct?
Yes.
And was identification requested of them in any way, shape, or form when they asked to be served alcohol?
No.
Thank you.
That's another guideline. If they are to be asked for ID, they're supposed to get up and just walk out, no questions asked. The following violation was Duet. The operatives went in, they came out shortly thereafter, they said they had been seated at the bar, they ordered and was served 2 beers from a bartender described as a white male, medium build. During their interaction, the bartender had actually been telling them about an upcoming wine tasting that they should come to. So they came out, they gave us the receipt, the change. Myself and the sergeant responded inside, spoke to the manager, and she brought us over to the bartender who acknowledged that he had made the sale. At the time, there was one other person at the bar, and I believe there was one table with one couple. So there were 3 other people inside the restaurant.
And Inspector, again, just to be crystal clear, were either one of the operatives asked for identification before they were served alcohol?
No, sir.
Thank you.
The following night, we did a compliance check at Arlington Liquors on Summer Street. The 2 operatives went in. They came out shortly thereafter carrying a 6-pack of 12-ounce Bud Light cans. They informed us that they had not been asked for identification. They provided us with the receipt, the change. We then responded inside, spoke to the cashier. He acknowledged that he had, in fact, sold the 2 underage operatives the beer and said that he believed that he recognized them from a past purchase.
Inspector Porcello, just a few follow-up questions.
Sure.
Is all of your testimony codified in the reports that have been provided to the Board of Selectmen?
Yes, sir.
And I note that you haven't identified these operatives, and what's the reason why you haven't identified these operatives?
Well, just to protect them. So if they should come into contact, or if these people who work at these restaurants want to try to find out who they are and maybe get some retribution, we just try to protect them.
And again, these I believe it was your testimony that they're under the age of 21?
They're 17, both of them.
17,
Yes.
17, right. If the board has any questions for Inspector Porcello, I'd open it up to the board for questions.
Yeah, I'll open it to the rest of the board. I just had one follow-up on that last point. If I'm not mistaken, one of the guidelines is actually that the operatives be from other communities so that the likelihood of being recognized is lessened.
Yeah, I believe that's a recommended guideline. It
Yeah.
would be kind of awkward to have someone from Arlington go into an establishment and have the bartender be their neighbor.
Right,
So that's another reason why.
right, okay. Do any of my colleagues have questions for Inspector Porcello? Ms. Mahon?
Just from reading the reports, in terms of what you submitted, Zoo and Duet appear to be on one day, and the time of the report was 18:59, which is just about 7 o'clock. My question is, the time of the report, is that the time you're actually entering the report, or is that the time that the incident violation occurred?
No, I document what time, so the narrative of my report will say what time the violation occurred.
Okay.
And the time on the report should have been whenever I had called down to dispatch and said, can you please open up a report for me?
Okay, so if one is 18:59 for Zoo and Duet, and then Arlington Liquors is another date at 18:48, which again is close to 7 PM. So that sounds...
That would just be probably towards the end of the operation on that evening, and that's probably when I had dispatch downstairs open up a report for me.
Okay, and I just want to establish this wasn't like a 10, 11 o'clock at night event.
No.
This was done early in the
Yes.
evening. And then I'll just do each one, same series of questions until we get into hearing from the establishment's representatives. In terms of Zoo Restaurant, served 2 beers by a female Asian waitress. Did the 2 operatives indicate any other conversation besides the fact that they weren't asked for their ID? Was there anything else that they reported back to you in terms of a conversation?
No.
At Zoo, after the 2 operatives, should I call them operatives? What should I call them? I don't want to say 2 kids. It seems like I'm...
2, I
What's the appropriate?
don't know, 2 teenagers?
2 teenagers, thank you. The 2 teenagers, which I believe you said were 17 years old. Then you said you went in, observed nobody else was in there, spoke to the server. Was there a manager on site?
We first spoke to the manager, and the manager then brought us to the server.
Okay. Did the manager have anything in particular to say, either
No.
before or after the server indicated that they did not ask for any identification? Did the manager indicate any sort of anything?
I believe he just acknowledged that there had been 2 people in the restaurant who had just made a purchase, I believe.
Okay. And then, same series of questions on Duet, where the 2 teenagers went in and were served 2 beers by a male Caucasian. You went back in, you indicated that the server, and I think there was one other person at the bar, indicated he had served them and spoke about an upcoming wine tasting. Did the two teenagers indicate there was any other conversation between that gentleman and themselves?
Not that I recall.
Okay. And same question regarding a manager. Was there a manager on the site? And
The
did you
manager
speak-
was acting as the hostess at the time.
Okay. And did he or she either say something, did he or she say anything after the violation was acknowledged in terms of what their explanation was for it, or?
I believe the bartender said something along the lines of, I sold to them, or I didn't ID them, my bad, something like that.
Okay. But nothing from the manager on site, which was the hostess also,
Yeah, not that I recall.
host or hostess, so. And then Arlington Liquors, which was the sale of the six-pack of Bud Light, which was the following day, but approximately the same time. They're like 2-3 minutes apart, so it's not late at night. When you went back in, and I understand you spoke to the cashier who indicated that person thought they had served these teenagers before and therefore were over 21. Was there anything else he or she related, any conversation?
No, I may have told him just to inform his manager, who was not on scene, but other than that, no.
And that would be my follow-up question, especially with Arlington Liquors. Was there or was there not a manager on site?
He was the only person I saw in the building, and I asked if the manager had been there, and he said no.
And at any time when you were in Arlington Liquors, gathering the information for your report, did any manager come to the establishment and appear on site?
While I was on site? No, ma'am.
Okay. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of my other colleagues, Mr. Greeley?
Thank you. Inspector, excellent work as always. The only thing that surprises me is two 17-year-olds who are 4 years under 21. Do you choose them based on they look close to 21, or?
I don't see them until they first walk into the police department for the first time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions, any further questions? Yeah, Attorney Heim.
Inspector, building on the board's question, in your professional opinion, did these individuals, the operatives who were 17, but based on their physical appearance, merit being carded as being possibly under 21 years of age?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I,
At this point, Mr. Chair, I'd ask to allow Inspector Porcello to take a seat while we hear from each one of the license holders. I do want to provide a small bit of information, as there's a slightly different posture for the different establishments that were here. So, according to the town's records, both Duet and Zoo's Garden do not have any previous violations on record. As the board knows, Arlington Liquors does have a previous violation on record that were found in violation for a separate incident, not for underage service, but for a violation of Section 138 and 204 CMI 2.05 subpart 2, which prohibits any illegality on the premises. This board determined a violation on November 14th, 2017 for a February 26th, 17 incident. Further, upon inquiry from a member of the Board of Selectmen, I did also want to note that according to the Board of Health, the Arlington Liquors also failed a tobacco product compliance check conducted by the Board of Health on March 16th, 2016.
On March what?
16th, 2016.
Mr. Chairman, Doug, you said on November 14th was the date of our decision?
November 14th was the date you determined a violation took
Okay, and what
place.
was the date of the violation? Do
The
you have-
date of the violation was February 26th, 2017. I'm sorry.
2016.
2016, my apologies.
But February 26th.
It was a November 14th, 2016 determination that they violated laws and regulations on February 26th that year.
Thank you.
They are on probation with a 5-day suspended sentence until November 30th of 2017. Sorry for getting my years crossed there.
thank you. Ms. Mahan?
And is my memory correct that the hearing that we had in November of 2016 for the February 2016 incident at Arlington Liquors, and you cited the Mass General Law, was regarding possession of marijuana on the premises,
That's correct.
and that's what those 2 citations refer to.
That's correct, Ms. Vaughn.
Thank you.
I have one question. You cited some Board of Health tobacco violations. I thought that there were actually 2 at that establishment, or was there a change of ownership?
So it's my understanding that in the Board of Health's current records, based on a change in the regulatory scheme, that there is at present a record of 1 violation of the present scheme of tobacco
Got it.
compliance requirements.
If there had been a previous violation, it wouldn't be recorded as
It was not recorded in the same way.
such. Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you very much, and thank you to
Thank you,
both of you.
Inspector.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you.
Inspector.
Okay, as I explained, we're going to go through one by one in the order that the establishments appear on the agenda. So first, I'd like to invite the representatives of Café Douai to the mic. If you could just give your names and identify yourselves. Yeah.
Good evening. Wayne Dupre. I'm one of the co-owners of Bistro Duet.
Also the manager, John Leone, attorney in Arlington, representing Wayne and Cyril, the other manager.
Thank you very much.
You have in front of you a package that he brought over to the board earlier today that has essentially a cover letter explaining that they take full responsibility for the incident, also the steps that they have taken since the incident, and the steps they'd also taken prior to the incident in order to avoid underage service. There's no 2 ways about it. The bartender who was on staff that evening, as Wayne will explain, was an employee of about 1 week. He did serve. He fessed up to it right away. They understand it. He served a 1-week suspension without pay immediately or shortly afterwards as his punishment for violating the policy of the town and also the restaurant. Since that time, they have stepped up their compliance requirements, and they have had continual training. You'll see their training logs that they now have. He has posted 2 things right when the employees can see them. One is right near the back of your package, a 8.5 by 11 sheet telling them all to, anybody that looks like they're less than 35 should be carded. And there's also a calendar, a rip-off date calendar. Every day you rip it off, it has the date 21 years prior to. So if their birthday is after that date, they don't get served. If it's before that date, they will get served. They have taken this very seriously. I have let them know even before they got it when we first came that the board does take this seriously. I let them know what the penalties are that have been meted out in the past. They understand that, and essentially, if you have any questions with Mr. Dupre, gladly answer them.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Byrd.
Thank you for being here. So we have this packet in front of us, and is this something that was created after this incident occurred?
That's right.
Yes. And what was it, how does it differ from what was in place prior to the incident occurring?
So what you have is sort of an update. So when we, previous to our opening on December 31st of last year, we had implemented a alcohol service policy which clearly outlines anyone who looks under the age of, or appears to be under the age of 35 should be carded. And the policy goes on, and I think you have a copy of it as well. The policy goes on to, provide employees with tips should you encounter someone who appears to have the signs of intoxication, how to slow them down, or how to serve safely. We also have in there guidelines that we adhere to internally for tastings, for educational purposes. So the policy that we put in place was quite extensive, and there was training and acknowledgement from all of our opening team. I've included in that packet the sign-off. I think it was the very first sign-off page is from the opening team pretty much in January or December of 2016. Since then, we we've reissued the policy to all staff who were already a part of that opening team, as well as anyone who was hired in between the opening and the date of the violation, and issued the policy and had everyone retrained and re-signed on the policy as well. So there's two cover sheets with those initials on there. And then there's a sort of the last page of our policy for every employee that we have is also included in the packet with their acknowledgement that they were trained originally on the exact same policy.
So those policies were in place prior to the incident. In fact, they were part of our initial submission for the license itself. The policies weren't invented afterwards. They were already in place.
I did put all of the corresponding documentation together after the violation had occurred, which includes initiatives that we had taken both before and after the violation.
And one follow-up, I understand you had a comprehensive packet when you first opened, and I believe I do remember it. Do you feel like every new employee received the, same amount or proper amount of training after that initial onboarding when you first opened? I know things can get hectic, in the first few months, and it sounds like the server was new, but do you feel like there was any, lack of training or lack of, preparedness on, management's part in the interim between your opening night and when this took place?
When it comes to the alcohol policy, no. We've been very, very particular. We have a checklist for every new employee when they come on board, and the issuance of our alcohol service policy is a part of that checklist, and it's handed out by me personally, and we cover it as well in our shift briefings on a daily basis. Not the entire policy on a daily basis, but bits and pieces from it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn?
Thank you. A couple questions. So one, on the trainings, a few of these people have NA next to them. What is that?
Because they either were not trained or they no longer work there, because they may have come on for a week's time and they're in a supporting role where they do not directly serve alcohol. They're not engaged with a customer, where they need to be acutely aware of. So for an example would be like a bus person or a food runner, someone who is a supporting role on the service team who is not taking orders from customers.
Okay. Second question is, and this I think relates back to something that Mr. Byrne was just asking. So was this the bartender in question? So they got the policy? Did they go through the training? Had they signed this sheet before the incident?
They had not.
Okay. So tell me more about that, because that's so when you came here, we gave you your license the first time. One of the things I talked about was new people hiring, and I went through how important it was that they get the training, and it sounds like that didn't work. My speech fell on deaf ears. Can you tell me about that?
No. So if I can, so
Please.
He received the policy.
Yep.
So every new employee, before they even go into service and begin taking orders, they receive the policy. He may not have, I don't believe that at the time of the violation that he had returned that policy to me and signed officially. So he had received the policy, but I did not receive it back. So we discussed the policy, but I always give a couple of days to people to go over it and then have them revert back to me with any questions they may have. But this, I think the timing of the actual inspection and the hiring of this employee was so tight that there certainly was overlap. And yeah.
So it seems to me that there's a real flaw there if you're putting people out on the floor serving without having been sure that they're following the policy. Are you going to change that policy? As in, are you going to, I guess what I'd like to hear you say is you agree not to put anyone on the floor, not to have anyone serve until they have signed and returned the policy.
Absolutely.
That's a change you're willing to make?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Start with that.
All done?
Tell them.
Ms. Mahan?
I'm not so great on my iPhone, and perhaps Attorney Leone or Attorney Heim might know. The date of the violation, February 27th. What day of the week was that?
Monday.
It was a Monday night?
Yes.
That's correct.
This employee, you're saying he had only been employed for 3 days when this happened?
No, he was hired, and I believe it was the 23rd of February.
Okay, so you believe it's the 23rd of February, it's not?
It was the 23rd, it was the 23rd of February. Because when he also was hired, he did not have a tip certification, but since, again, the timing of this inspection and his hiring obviously there was a pretty tight window. He was suspended with 1 week without pay, and then I would not allow him back without a tip certification.
All right, and just to echo Mr. Dunn's comments, he certainly has taken the lead, and I'm 152% behind him. When people come in with requests to serve alcohol, he basically tells every applicant of the pitfalls and tribulations in terms of, and he pretty much cites case in point exactly what happened here. A new employee, you're saying you had a policy which you did present to us when you first opened back in December. People have to be tip certified and read the policy and acknowledge it, and you failed on all those, which I'm extremely concerned about that. And the good or bad thing for you is my day job is court reporter, so that's why I'm trying to establish a record in my mind for anything that may happen in the future. I'm not saying it will, but the second thing is, in terms of, I was really concerned that, a brand new server only on 3 days, and I come from a restaurant chain family. You may have heard the Chateaus and some of the other restaurants. That's where I come from, so I'm very cognizant of the policy and protocols, having worked at the different various establishments, and it seems to me you had a very well-trained 3-day employee that when serving the 2 beers to the 17-year-olds, which you say your policy was then, and supposedly is now, anyone under 35, we card, but that person obviously had received on-the-floor training before he went out to perform his duties as a server, to mention an upcoming wine tasting. So, and I know how that works. You get on the floor, you get on the shift before, you say, okay, mention the wine tasting, mention we're having a special brew coming in from Harpoon, and it seems you were really lacking in terms of, to say it's a brand new employee, this employee knew to promote the wine tasting. So that's a big lapse there in terms of what you should have done. And then the other thing I was very concerned about, just coming from, and I'm not telling you how to run your restaurant, but there really should be, a hostess should not be the manager. A hostess really can only do hostess, and hostess is usually, host or hostess is also usually picking up the slack in terms of server, front of the house, back of the house, and you had no manager on site that night, and you're only open 2.5 months into that. So what is your policy now regarding, I understand you are the manager, but you can also have an assistant manager or something else. I think it's very dangerous, and I think it's unfair to the employee. This is my personal opinion, take it for what it's worth. A host or hostess should never be the manager, especially with a brand new business, and the clientele that you bring in. How did that happen, that you did not have a manager on site?
So we have a manager on site every evening. Pretty much, it's myself. We're open 7 nights a week, and I'm there 7 nights a week. The assistant manager in this case was, in fact, the only one in the restaurant at the time that the investigation occurred, which I believe was somewhere around between 5:30, 6 o'clock, because I happened to step out momentarily. When I had come back, I was informed about the situation, and of course, from my perspective, I was like, kind of at a loss for words.
Well, I would ask you to sort of reevaluate that sort of hierarchy. I mean, your host or hostess should not be your manager. You should, if you're the manager of record, you're not there, you have an assistant manager. And it may be your best server or one of your 2 best bartenders. They're taking off that duty for the 30 minutes that you just happened, and I'm just saying it that way. I just was concerned, and I get the restaurant business. It's very difficult, and if you own a restaurant, that's your life and that's your family because you live there. I mean, I totally get that. My whole family extended pretty much does that. But it's kind of the business we have chosen to go into. So I just really was concerned that you, in my opinion, did not have a true manager on site. If you could reevaluate that policy, because you can't be there 24/7, 7 days a week, although being in the restaurant business, you're pretty much there 7 days a week, that when you aren't there, that you sort of have a designated hierarchy, that you take a most senior member, if you don't already have an assistant manager, make him or her be that person for the short duration you're not going to be there, or you're not going to be there 4 hours for, somewhere else you have to be, and that's their only role. A hostess or a host cannot be a manager also. So that's one of the things that if you appeared before us again, that I would really take issue with. So I'm hoping, that's not something you have to do, but I was very concerned about that, and very concerned that a 3-day employee was so up to speed on promoting wine tasting, but not checking for IDs.
Thank you, and I can confidently say that because of the result of of course, what happened on the evening, that's what you're saying is exactly one of the things that we reevaluated back in early March, was, all right, we can't always be here 100% of the time. What happens when we're not? And so since then, that we have reevaluated that, and now we do have a system of hierarchy in place as to who would be in charge if someone like myself was to step away.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Greeley, do you have anything? Great. I just have one question. I noticed on the memo that you gave us that you note that you introduced an incident logbook for any alcohol-related incidents. Could you talk a little bit more about that, and how is that used? Who's keeping that logbook? What types of incidents are you tracking?
So I put together a logbook. Fortunately, it's empty. There's nothing in there. But I keep a logbook based on when you go through the 7 critical steps of safe alcohol service as part of a tip certification. One of the things that they talk about is documentation. And I have no excuse, but with a couple of months leading up from the opening to the violation, one thing that we did overlook was the need to have a logbook on site. So should anyone already enter the restaurant having signs of drinking somewhere else, we would log that, just so that we can keep track of if there was an incident that was to occur that was out of our control, meaning that they had a drink somewhere else. Another example would be if someone had a drink in the restaurant and then started to show signs of intoxication, like if we had to cut someone off and refuse service, we want to document that. And we not only want to document that, but we also want to document what steps we take to make sure that person gets home safe, whether it's offering food, water, calling a taxi cab, or any other steps. We would log any of those.
And that's the responsibility of the manager to keep that logbook?
right.
And the staff are all trained to know what types of things to report
That's
to
right.
you? In that case? Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else have other questions? So I think you're certainly well aware that we have an established policy. We have fairly wide latitude, actually, in what we can do in situations like this, should the board decide to do anything. But we do have a guideline that for a first offense, generally, we have a range of 3 to 5 day suspension to commence on the day of the violation. So putting that out there, and I'm sure you're quite well aware of that. I think we discussed it at the time of application. I was wondering if any of my colleagues have a motion that they would like to put out on the table.
Yep. I move that we suspend their license for 3 days, just commencing on a Monday. I'd appreciate it if the statement the town council is going to prepare for us would include a reference to the commitment to doing training before and signing before the policy before anyone starts. So we have to, I know, looking at the calendar, I know the town council has to prepare this and come back to us. Is July 24th presumably when we would do a final vote on this? Is that?
Yes, Mr. Dunn.
Okay. So presuming that we're going to finalize this vote on July 24th, then I'd say the suspension to be served in August, but I'm certainly flexible for that. And I did say 3 days, right?
Correct.
That's my motion.
So it's a motion by Mr. Dunn. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Byrne. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Ms. Mahan?
I know some people tend to feel that I come down on the harder side of the fence, but I'm definitely comfortable with my colleague Mr. Dunn's recommendation. It is your first violation. You have recently opened. I understand the stressors in terms of a new restaurant and new chef and new cuisine and hiring new employees. I just want to highlight that you certainly have other protocols and policies in place in terms of educating your servers, as evidenced by, the conversation that occurred this night. So that tells me that you must be having, whether it's shift meetings or weekly meetings, where you go over different aspects of your business and educate your servers, your bartenders, your bus people, et cetera. So I do feel confident, having sort of been stung fairly new into your restaurant life. I feel you have the safeguards in place, and you were lacking on a very important aspect of it. So I'm comfortable with the 3-day versus a 4 or a 5. That's not to say I would have gotten it if I tried to go for anything more, but I feel confident that you've recognized this and have put steps in place to make sure this doesn't happen again, because it's really not that hard. And you've taken a couple of extra steps in terms of the alcohol log, which is to Arlington's benefit and your benefit in terms of anything that might happen and a liability that goes there too. I know Attorney Leone is very well versed in terms of, and I'm not saying he has guided you with any of these things, but I know he's cognizant of what this board's concerns are and what steps we like to see after these happen, and I'm sure he gave you some of that knowledge to do it. So I just want to, my remarks, again, are basically laying the record so that if you do come back again, then that'll be another story, and I worked at ABCC for 15 years, so that's why I ask all the questions that I do ask, but I definitely agree with Mr. Dunn's motion, seconded by Mr. Byrne.
Thank you very much. Mr. Corley, do you have
In
anything
August is
on
fine.
that? Okay, and I will also be supporting the motion. I do appreciate that you note here that you did ask key staff to update their tip certifications, and flipping through here, I do see that most of those were issued just a couple of weeks after the violation occurred, so certainly before we had ever scheduled this hearing. I appreciate that, so I will also be supporting the motion. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of Mr. Dunn's motion?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Dunn, to be clear, Mr. Dupre tells me that the employees do have to sign that alcohol policy prior to starting at this point.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the change that you had asked me to make, we did make that change immediately following that investigation, and we understood that when the violation occurred, that was a shortfall, and that was our mistake. So we've made that adjustment already.
Good.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. So next, we'd like to hear from the representatives of Zoo's Garden.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi. At first, I'm so sorry about it happens to in my restaurant.
I'm sorry, could you tell us your name and...
My name's Aaron from Juice Garden. I'm
Okay.
the owner
Okay,
and also the manager.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that happens in my restaurant, and I will try to not happen it again. And I have made some paper. I think it's on front of you guys. And I have quit the training every week on Saturday for the servers to remind them not to serve the alcohol to the age under 21. And there's a list. I have put the list, and they have to check the list every day when they go to work. There's also the list, no serving alcohol to under 21. And I also put a lot of the pick a lot of the sign to check the alcohol, make sure they over 21, and make sure it not happen again.
Okay, thank you. I just had one question for clarification as I'm looking through the materials provided us. Am I understanding that you're basing your training on Not Your Average Joes?
What is it?
Do I understand that you're basing your training on Not Your Average Joes? I see a reference within the materials that we have here. Another restaurant in town.
Yeah.
Where did you get your training policy from?
Oh, the town of Arlington, they send it to me.
Oh, okay, okay. Do my colleagues have questions? Yeah, Mr. Dunn.
So can you tell me about tell me more about the circumstances about how it happened? In particular, I'm curious, the waitress, how long had she been with you?
She with me 3.5 months.
And so had she been trained beforehand?
Yes, but after that happens, I asked her to go to the alcohol training and to get more training about how to serve the alcohol.
So it sounds like, so if I understand then, so you hired someone, you gave them a training, and then 3 months later, they unfortunately they served without checking for ID. If someone, so if the next person that you hire, and then I understand that that person had additional training. So now the next person that you hire, you're going to go through the training. What's going to be different that's going to keep this from happening again?
So if I hire a new person, I will ask him to go to the training before he come to serve the alcohol.
Is that a different training than this?
Yeah, different training.
Okay.
And we have the training in our restaurant every week. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Byrne?
I think building off Mr. Dunn's question, can you talk a little bit about what the training was like before you adopted this policy here?
Okay. So the training is like, we talk more about the alcohol, how it's like, we're not going to serve like people who looks under 35. We have to check the ID before we serve.
And was that something that happened before this incident occurred?
No.
No? So what was the policy at that time? What type of training did your waiters and waitresses go through?
It's probably just, probably the same, but we do it more often.
Okay, so it's more repetitive.
Yeah, and we, like I say, I put the sign on every station they go to, the servers go to, so they can see it very often, so never.
Okay,
So
more signage.
remind them all the time, so never make it happen again.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Do we have Ms. Mahan?
What was your name again? I apologize.
My name's Aaron.
Aaron?
Yep.
Nice to see you. Just following on the chairman's question, I'm looking at what you submitted to the board of what your new policy is, and following up on his question, I would recommend that you go back through and look at this policy. It's my understanding that you called the town perhaps and asked for a sample of what other establishments might be doing, because what you've done on page 18, you've copied Not Your Average Joe's, and it references Not Your Average Joe's, and this isn't your restaurant. So that, to me, raises a concern whether you actually have read your own policy. I'm not saying you can't use something as a template, as a guide, but you need to make it specific or custom to your business.
I have the policy in Chinese, cause all my service is Chinese. They read Chinese more easy, and they can put it in head more. They can remind it, easy to understand it.
I wish I could understand two languages, but I can't.
So I didn't use that one.
Unless you count kids. Okay, so that's what I'm saying in going through this.
I have my own.
Okay, so, but if you had a server who only read English and not Chinese, I would suggest that you go through this and make it so that it references your establishment and not Your Average Joe's. And go through and see if there's any other references in there, because that also, you just going through that, with that eye, there may be something that you pick up and say, I should do that, or I can do it that better a different way. Were you the manager at Zoo the night, I think this was also a Monday night, was this also
Yeah.
the 27th? Were you on duty that night?
Yeah.
You were. And once this incident had been brought to your attention, was there anything that you observed before, or that you saw before, or was there anything that happened immediately thereafter? When the police came in and let you know of this violation?
Yeah, I know it after they come, so.
Okay. And in terms of what I asked the previous business owner, and I'm not saying it should be you, but is there always a manager on site at your restaurant?
Yes,
And that person is a manager?
yeah. Either I'm in the restaurant or my sister in the restaurant, or my uncle is in the restaurant too. So it's like either I'm not there, like someone is there, it's the manager who will take care of it.
Okay, so if you can just go through this again in terms of, if you have an English-speaking reading employee,
Yeah.
that it reflects your restaurant.
I have a lot of stuff, but it's all in Chinese, so
Attorney Heim, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, if I may, sir, who is Boe Zhu?
me.
You're Boe Zhu?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's in Chinese, so.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
No. No, my daughter-in-law's from Nepalese, and we go by her American name, Ati, so I totally get that. I would be comfortable making a motion for, similar to before, 3-day suspension sometime in August to commence on the same night of the offense, which would be a Monday night.
Ms. Mahan has a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Byrne. Also in August. All right, do we have further discussion on that? Yeah, Mr. Curro.
So, just with this employee, what did you say? You made sure she has been retrained?
Yeah. I have after this happens, I made her to not serve the alcohol for 1 month, and after she returned and come back. I was there every time she served the alcohol, and I saw her to ask the ID for even people old, around 40. So I'm pretty sure she won't make it happen again.
If she did, what would be your policy? If she did this again?
I don't think she would do it again.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Byrne, yeah.
Doug, has Zoo's Garden passed inspections in the past, or is this their first?
So my understanding is that Zoo's Garden was licensed first in 2015. So I do believe they would have passed one alcohol compliance check previously.
Thanks, Joe. Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I will also support the motion, but I would also echo that, please, the policies that are presented to us, I understand you have translated copies, and I think it's excellent that you have translated copies of the policies for your employees. I think that's an excellent step. But if what we have here doesn't match what those are, I would just request in the future, please don't submit these as the actual policy, because I see some other inconsistencies here as well, so, okay. But I'm happy to support the motion on the basis it was put forward. So do we have any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Alexander Liquors. If representatives from Alexander Liquors could come forward, please.
Again.
Hi. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the, could you identify yourself
Yep.
first, please? Yeah.
Alexander Kuczynski, owner of Arlington Alexander Liquors.
Okay.
First of all, the person who received the violation was the manager, and I reviewed and interviewed him, reviewed it on the camera, And what I saw happen was there was two teenagers came in, and immediately they split up. And the person who approached with a six-pack of beer to buy it was 17 years old, I guess. I didn't see his documents, but he said he's 17 years old, but he had no hair. And the guy should have carded him, but he slept on it. And the girl who was with him, she caught his attention immediately, and she veered off into the liquor store. They were not together, and he was watching her, and I think that's perhaps why he slept. Disciplinary actions did happen for this employee, and we do ongoing training at the liquor store all the time. That's an issue all the time that we talk about, carding people. All we do there is serve liquor and cigarettes. We don't serve food and liquor. We just serve liquor. So it's a major priority. In the 6 years that we've had our license, we've never came across a sale of alcohol to a minor, because we are very careful about it, and we take it very seriously. And all I can say is that, he made a mistake. Out of the 500 customers we serve every day, he, obviously made a mistake.
Before I open it up to my colleagues for questions, you said that disciplinary measures were taken. Could you describe those, please?
Yeah, he was removed from serving customers for, I think, a couple of weeks. And a different position was given to him. And then he returned to his position that he serves now. And I haven't had any issues. In the 8 years that he's been employed with me, I've never had an issue with this employee as far as minors.
Okay. Ms. Mahan?
Just based on what we heard from, and are you the manager? I think you are the manager of record.
I am the manager. I am listed as the manager.
Right.
You could
But you're
call-
saying there was a different individual that you're calling, the person who was the cashier, you also want to call the manager for that
He was
night?
he was the evening supervisor. That would be perhaps a more appropriate name, if you don't want to use
Okay, so
store
there was
manager.
no manager on site?
Well, there's, I consider the person responsible for any issues that may arise during the hours of operation would be the manager, so if you want to call him the manager at that moment in time.
No, I don't. I think it's similar to what I said before
Yeah.
with the other establishments. You really need to have a hierarchy, and you need to have people responsible. And for someone to be a manager, it can't just be a host, a hostess, or a cashier. You're the manager of record, you're responsible to be there, and if not, you need to have your counterpart there so that mistakes like this don't happen. But if I could get back for a few questions for you, but if it's appropriate, if I could ask Attorney Heim, is it appropriate if I ask Inspector Porcello 3 or 4 procedural questions just based on what the manager has indicated happened that night and the alleged actions that he's stating that the 2 teenagers undertook to sneak in and trick him?
I don't think they snuck into...
No, I'm asking Attorney Heim. I'm going by what you just said.
Of course, Ms. Vaughn, you may ask Inspector Porcello additional questions.
Okay.
Inspector Porcello, if you could come forward, please. Thank you, Ms. Mahan.
And we didn't ask you for these details when you first came up. You indicated, how the 2 teenagers were chosen, where the money they got came from, that they were given breathalyzers before they went in. And I want to ask questions. I'm not being sarcastic or trying to minimize the importance of this, but when these 2 who gives the 2 teenagers in these operations training beforehand? Is it down at the police station? God bless you.
Bless you.
Yeah, we just have a quick little pep talk with them and say, go in, buy beer or order beer, and come out.
When you have the 2 teenagers and you're giving them instructions to go in, do you recommend to them that they sneak in?
No.
When you have the 2 teenagers down at the police station before you go out on the sting, the operation, do you advise them to split up in different parts of the store so that one may distract a cashier, a host, a hostess, a server, and the other will try to purchase the alcohol?
No.
In terms of when the 2 teenagers go in, do you give them any guidance in the sense of perhaps they should stay together versus going off in different directions of the restaurant or the store? In terms of, like, are there any safety, you give them any guidance in terms of this is how you should enter the store, this is how you should sit at this table?
No.
Okay. In all the years that you've been doing this, have you or anybody that you've been in the presence of indicated to these teenagers that they should sneak into a store, they should split up from each other, and one of the teenagers should try to distract the person, the cashier, host, or hostess, to get them to serve them as minors?
No.
No, thank you. Thank you, appreciate that.
Okay. Mr. Greeley, do you have any questions? No.
No.
Mr. Dunn? Mr. Byrne? No?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned about your store and what's been happening there. And so I can see, so we've got at least two events in a year where IDs weren't checked. One was alcohol and one was tobacco. We had, you were here in November, and I can only say that we attempted to make it incredibly clear that it was important that, you know, your store not have any events in the coming months. And it was 3 months later that there was an event in this particular incident. And I haven't heard you yet say anything that convinces me that the next 3 months or the next 12 months are going to be any different. So what is going to be different that will prevent this from happening in the future?
Well, in the general atmosphere of the establishment, since the time we spoke in November, since we had this meeting in November, store improvements were made. You guys brought up the awnings on the outside of the store; those were removed. The place was repainted. The tenant in the basement was an issue. I don't know if you were aware of that, but he's been removed. So a lot of employees changed. I mean, we're on top of it. We're definitely on top of the fact that we do not serve to minors. Like I said, that's a top priority for us, and we talk about it all the time. We have the age right on the computer right there. Our policy is to card anybody under 40. 90% of our customers are regulars, but it's not something that we pass on. And I believe this is an isolated incident, and going forward, I believe that it will not happen since this is the first time this has happened in 6 years. And I don't want to stand here and lie to you that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, change a lot of things around. I just want to relay to you that this is something we pay very close attention to. We take it very seriously, and God willing, it's not going to happen again.
So the thing that I'm going to keep on this same point, because I feel like that's very similar, if not the same thing that you would have said in November, and yet we still had the problem 3 months later. I feel like there has to be. I'm looking for something that makes me say, yes, this is the store. Like the store is going to behave differently. They're either, they changed their training policy, or they added a new check method, or there's got to be, to me, there's got to be. I take that sentence back, but. How can you convince me that this isn't exactly like the conversation we had in November?
I just want to bring up the fact that we take away IDs all the time, because this is something that goes on in their business all the time. Every day we get minors in there, and every day we card somebody, and every day we turn somebody away. And we take IDs away from people, and we turn them over to the police. And a lot of times it's people in the community who have fake IDs, and what the police do to them, it's their business.
How often, so I hadn't heard that before, how often do you turn over IDs to the police?
Probably we get, I don't know how many we get, but I know last time I saw them, there was like 6 of them there. Maybe February, this was around February, and I know that those went to the police. The person who does the purchasing there in the mornings, he's the one who You know, I don't think we make a special trip to the police station to pass them on. We give them to the local police who come in to just say hello, check on us. You know, I've brought up to my employees the concept of carding everybody like they do at the sporting events, and I'm not against that as an owner. You know, they say, well, it's bad for business, it makes our job harder, but I'm not opposed for that. I have actually even spoken to other store owners about that, and I've heard things like, you know, that's some type of profiling, and you can't do that. But, you know, I mean, if this board thinks that Arlington as a community would benefit from a policy like that, I'm not against that. Like I said, I don't want to make money on minors. That's not my intent.
Can you explain to me why you'd need that to be a community policy as opposed to a policy of your store? Because frankly, I don't see any reason that it has to be community policy.
What I meant as far as the community is not other establishments like myself. I was referring to the whether Arlington wants to be a spot where we card everybody, because I don't believe there's a single store out there presently in Massachusetts that has that policy.
I guess you may have wandered off somewhere that I'm not following, that I'm not understanding why you're bringing it up, because I'm trying to understand what I'm trying to understand what your store is going to do differently since November. Is there something?
Well, we dealt with this employee on an individual basis, on an isolated basis, and you know, I mean, I watched through the video from my house, you know, after I work 10 hours a day, and, you know, I'm on top of them. And like I said, this is just, I believe this is an isolated incident that, you know, 6 years, not a single violation.
Well,
So I guess I'm concerned, I would disagree that it's not, that I agree that this is the first violation of this specific type. But in the last year, there have been 2 other violations that of significant note. One is selling alcohol, so this would be the third. This is selling alcohol underage. Selling tobacco underage was a previous one. And of course, we had the problem in November.
The tobacco one was multiple years ago, I believe.
I believe that, Attorney Heim, can you confirm March 16th, 2016 for the tobacco?
That's correct, Mr. Dunn.
Does that sound incorrect to you?
What's the date on that?
March 16th of last year, 2016?
I'm not, it sounds like it was farther back.
Excuse me, Mr. Dunn, I think I can clarify, based on, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that the March 16th, as Mr. Heim said, Attorney Heim said, that is the first violation of record, but it's because there was a change in regulations. I believe that there was actually a second, or another violation several years ago to which you're alluding, under the old set of regulations. So in reality, there've been 2.
Yeah, so, but regardless of the previous one that we don't actually know the exact date of, we've got a date which is February 26, 2016. We've got March 16th of 2016. We've got a
February
meeting here in
28th.
November of 2016, and then we've got an incident in February of 2017. So, yeah. All right, different question. You mentioned a tenant, and I hadn't heard about that before. Can you tell me about the tenant in the basement?
He fixed motorcycles, and he was supposed to go in there. When I bought the business, he was already in there, and he was supposed to be a storage place. And it turned out that he wasn't a storage place, and it took me a long time to get him out. And he was creating a mess in the back by the Minuteman Trail. So that's all been, cleaned up, and that's a lot more pleasant than it was when he was there.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dunn, can I clarify something?
Please.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, certainly.
I'm sorry, is this a commercial tenant or a residential tenant?
Commercial.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have more
Thank you.
questions.
Mr. Burke, did you have anything?
Yes, I do. So you mentioned before that when you check IDs, you use an ID scanner. Is that something you mentioned?
We do use those.
Yeah. What do you do? I know you advertise a delivery service.
Yeah.
What is the ID checking process like
The
when
same
you make
exact thing
deliveries?
that's in the store. We scan, the person scans, and we also have ID scans on our phones.
So there's an ID scanner on your phone that your delivery driver takes around?
Yeah.
Interesting. That's the first I know of that. I'm also curious, can you talk a little bit more about the kind of informal process in which you turn over IDs that you've taken? This is news to me.
Yeah, we just tell the police that we have these IDs and they grab them.
And then they stop by and pick
They
them up?
stop by, yeah, and we pass them on.
Is that, Attorney, is that a common practice that is in
Sorry,
place?
Mr. Byrne, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if this pertains to this at all, but there's a lot of IDs in Arlington from Connecticut specifically.
Okay.
And I believe somebody in Arlington is making them,
Okay.
because there's too many.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask,
And
oh,
then-
Mr. Greeley, and then I'd like to ask.
Oh,
a few,
no,
and then
that's
I'll-
fine, then I'll come
Yeah.
back, because I
Yeah.
just got off track with Inspector.
So, if I might ask, you were not there the time of this offense, am I correct?
I was not.
Huh?
I was not there.
You were not there. So you were watching from home on the video?
I saw it later on the video.
And it is your contention that these two who went in, the young man and the young woman, the woman intentionally went into the store to distract?
No, I believe what happened is that she was overwhelmed, or and she kind of wandered off away from his side. They came in together at first, like they were a couple, like they were together. And as he proceeded to the beer cooler, she veered off to the right a little bit and hung out in that area where the wine is until he came up, made the transaction, and then as he was walking out, she caught up to him and they exited together.
But I thought you made it sound before like that this was a routine they were pulling off, the woman.
I don't believe so.
Oh, you don't?
I don't believe so. My point there was that
But what did you mean by you feel she was overwhelmed?
in my experience, that when youth comes in with their parents to buy alcohol, they want to touch everything, they want to see everything, because it's the Pandora's box kind of for them, especially at a certain age.
I spoke for leniency the last time. I can't do it again.
Thank you, Mr. Corley. I can't either. And I'm going to try to be as respectful as possible, but I honestly feel that this is a bit of a slap in the face of this board, because we did exercise some leniency the last time with the probation, and barely 2 or 3 months passed, and we're here again. So I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So firstly, you said that 90% of the customers that come in are regulars.
Yes.
I'm trying to understand then why the server would possibly think that these two operatives, who clearly were not regulars.
He was scared.
I'm sorry?
I believe he was scared and spoke out of place.
He was scared and spoke out of place. I'm also trying to understand, following up on Mr. Greeley's question, if the two individuals split up and the cashier, supervisor, or whatever you want to call him, was suspicious of the behavior, why would they not card at that point? Why would they not give extra scrutiny to the customer at the counter when they came in with the other young lady?
From my experience in being in the same situations, he was distracted, and he was distracted because this other person, this girl who was there, she looked really young. I mean, the guy who was at the register, he looked a lot older, questionable about age. But the girl herself, she was extremely young. I think she was an American, and she caught his attention immediately. Why would a girl this young be in the store? He was perhaps afraid that she might steal something.
I don't see why it's pertinent that she wasn't American, but that's beyond the point.
I'm just trying to show that she looked young.
Okay. But he understood that they came in together. You said that they came in as a couple. But he didn't give
They
extra
walked in the
scrutiny.
store together, whether it was known to him if they were together or not. I don't know. A lot, customers walk in together at the same time.
You've testified that you said that you see quite a few false IDs from Connecticut.
Yep.
Have you instituted a policy to stop accepting
Yeah,
Connecticut IDs?
we don't take a Connecticut IDs exactly for that reason, or Rhode Island for that matter. In fact, the only IDs we don't even take out of states. We only take military passports, mass.
Okay. You said that your employees change a lot, but this one particular employee has been there something like 8 years?
Most of my employees have been with me for 10-plus years.
10-plus years. And how often do you review the training with them?
We do ongoing training on a monthly basis, where we get together for meetings, and this is one of the aspects that we address.
I'd like to ask, if I might ask Inspector Porcello, could you come to the mic? Not to put you on the spot, but in your experience, are you familiar with a policy such as this, where IDs are turned in by an individual liquor store just randomly, and how they're logged?
I mean, I can only speak for Arlington.
Yeah, Arlington's all I care about.
I mean, I come to work every morning and I read every report. So in the last 10 years, there's no report that's been written in Arlington that I haven't read unless I don't have access to it. And I know we take reports on everything. I've never seen a report about turned-in property or found property with IDs. I've never seen it. Not to say that it doesn't happen. I'm not saying he's not telling the truth, but I've never read a report or heard about somebody turning in IDs.
Okay.
Now, that's just, I wasn't prepared for that question.
Certainly, I understand. I don't think we were prepared for that explanation, so thank you, Inspector.
Okay.
Thank you. Sir, you heard us talking with the other establishments about alcohol incident logs. Do you keep a log of that sort?
No, we don't.
You keep no log of that sort?
About specific incidents regarding minor IDs, no.
Okay. I think that's all I have. Did you have more, Ms. Mahan?
I just wanted to, I took Inspector Porcello out of turn, but then I had some questions, which my colleagues have already asked, so I'm not going to re-ask those. I do want to say, I really question your veracity. You know, I've been in courtrooms, and we've all been in legal settings. You basically have changed your story on a dime at least 9 times here. I just
want to take responsibility.
Okay, and also in terms of deflecting, there's been 2 or 3 times when you've tried to deflect and accuse this board that we want you and other establishments to engage in profiling, and as well as one of the teenagers was not American. To me, again, that goes to your veracity of what you're saying. You say you're giving testimony about what happened that night, but you weren't there. How many cameras do you have on the store? And I'm going to check, so just tell me exactly how many, because I can walk in there tomorrow, and I'm going to look at that screen, and I'm going to see 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3. So how many cameras do you have?
We have 5 cameras, and the camera that I was reviewing is the camera directly over the register, which sees the 90% of the action of the store. That's the camera that I use most often.
Well, if it's over the register, how are you able to observe the overwhelmed non-American teenage girl who split up? Excuse me, I haven't finished my question. I want to do it for the record.
Okay.
How were you able to observe the overwhelmed non-American 17-year-old girl who snuck in and split up with the other 17-year-old teenager to distract your cashier by your very testimony? She went to the outskirts of the store, and you're looking at your camera that's directed at the cashier. And I've been in this establishment because my colleagues know at the last hearing, I really wanted to come down very heavy and hard on you, because I have heard many analogies and have been in the store myself, which unfortunately I couldn't relay on the record because that was not appropriate. I'm not a police officer called in there. So I'm questioning your veracity about your characterization and what actually happened in that store when you just told me you looked at the camera that's focused directly on the cashier.
The camera covers a 15 to 20 square foot area in front of the register.
Okay, well, I'm just going to state, just, you know, for the record and to your face, I don't believe you. I
I can
believe.
show you on the phone presently
I know.
and
but,
immediately.
Okay, I'm going to make the statement now, and if I ask a question, you can answer it, and I would just respectfully ask you just to let me make this.
Ms. Mahan has the floor.
I do not believe you about confiscating illegal licenses and turning them into the police. I know what in Boston and the ABCC policy is. If you were turning in the amount of licenses from Connecticut that you stated were being made here in Arlington, I know, number one, that would trigger reports that our officers would be aware of and our inspectors in chief. And number two, I am fully confident that that also would trigger some sort of an investigation or a unit assigned to this. You're indicating you're turning in anywhere from 3 to 6 a month. And I also know, because we went through the TIPS training, that there's a policy that when you do confiscate an illegal alcohol license, there's steps that you need to take. And I know because you say you don't have a log or anything else. So I don't believe you when you tell me that you caught a lot of people and you confiscate illegal IDs. And to me, again, that goes to your veracity. It goes to when you appeared before us in November of 2016 for the February and March violations of 2016. Now you're appearing again, before us again for a February 2017 violation, and I will let my colleagues know, and I'll leave it to the chairman for a future agenda. We did receive a complaint. You spoke about a tenant that I, again, would question if that actually was a legal tenant, meaning what you're zoned for and what should be in there. But we did receive a complaint with some pictures this week, which I believe we'll be addressing at a future meeting in terms of, and I drove by and saw it myself, the outside of your premises, the trash is all over the place. It's going into the bike path. And I raise that because, to me, an alcohol license is a privilege, and it's also a duty we bestow, and we say to the voters, we take these seriously when you allow us the opportunities to give them out, and we give them to people who are going to be a guardian of them and respect, how important that it is and what needs to be done to appropriately and legally and safely operate an establishment that has this. I do not see it from this gentleman. I think he deflected when he came in on the, as Attorney Heim cited, the illegal possession of marijuana that some of my colleagues have said, and I'm not saying it in a negative way, that in my opinion, went very light on you, which I did not want to do, but in the spirit of cooperation. But I also agreed to it back then because I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that you would be before us again. You're not in there. You're the manager of record. You can't watch it from home. You flip-flop saying, oh, well, the cashier, he was the manager. No, he was a night. In my opinion, you do not take this alcohol license serious. And I don't feel like I can put my trust and faith in you in terms of operating an appropriate establishment, but also recognizing my years at working at ABCC and the need to establish some sort of a record, as well as the possible successfulness of probability of prevailing in terms of what sort of penalty or punishment we garner out. What I would like to do, I don't know that ABCC, I'd like to really, in my opinion, throw the book at you, but I'd like to make a motion that, number one, that light sentence that we suspended for 5 days, it's already pretty much written in the language that is the first part of your punishment. So I'd like to make that the initial 5-day suspension that we suspended, pending if this gentleman could go a year without another violation. And then, as much as I'd like to make a motion to revoke the license, unless any of my other colleagues had an appetite for it, I'd like to instill the next maximum punishment of an additional 5-day suspension for a total of 10 days on this license, with the same probationary period, and with Attorney Heim telling me that that's the max I can go to. What's the max I can, short of revocation, which I would love to do, but.
So, first and foremost, Ms. Holman, thank you. Once the board finds a violation, the 5 days will automatically be served by the terms of the previous penalty that this board meted out. So after tonight, there should be a service of that 5-day penalty starting, I believe, on a Friday, which was when that original violation occurred. After that, the board's guidelines indicate 3 to 5 days for a first-time violation of underage service policy. Although I don't want to mislead the board to say that that is binding. That's the board's policy. The board can impose a greater suspension or a different suspension above that if it feels that the circumstances merit it.
Okay, well then, I'll go with my original and then see what my colleague's appetite is, which is institute the initial 5-day suspended license, and I'd make a motion to revoke this gentleman's alcohol license.
I'm trying to understand. Okay, so the 5-day probationary,
That
which is automatic
automatic,
anyway,
right,
so
right.
we don't actually need a
Right.
motion on
Right,
that. So it's a
okay.
motion to revoke.
Yep.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Dunn. Do we have further discussion on the motion?
Wow. I think 10 is a huge penalty. Complete revocation, I'm hesitant at this point, to be honest.
Mr. Byrne?
I'm not saying.
He'll be back, I'm telling you, he'll be back. If you know me.
Well, I know, and that's why the first 5 days goes on, but
Okay.
go ahead, Steve.
No, I think I agree with all my colleagues when I recognize the seriousness of what's taken place at your establishment over the last, year or so, I think is what we're discussing today. I'm not quite sure I'm ready to support a revocation of the license. I do think I'd be happy to go up to 10, between 10 and 15 days. I think that while, I certainly don't see this as a first offense in how we regularly define these incidents. I know that as we've spoken about kind of the past history here. So I'd be willing to go up to 15 days on top of the previous 5 days, and I think that is an incredibly harsh punishment. I think that's fair, and I think that sets a groundwork for the next time being a revocation.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Mr. Dunn?
I've thought about this one a lot. I definitely came in tonight wanting to hear more because I knew that what I learned tonight would really impact my decision. And the thing is that I look at the pattern of facts and I say, I don't believe that this store is well run, and I don't believe that it is being run in a safe way for this community. And I'm not hearing a change happening. And so one of the things that I was the ideas that I kicked around in my head would be things like doing a suspension on top of this second one, and taking under advisement that we not renew the license in January, for instance, and thereby encouraging the sale of the business to a different manager, to somebody who can actually affect change in this establishment. Because I just think about the conversations that we had in November, and a stern talking to and a suspension. We've seen what that does, and what a stern talking to and a suspension does is it gets us back here in 3 months. And so I'm honestly still undecided on whether or not I'm going to vote yes on Mrs. Mahan's motion. I've given it serious consideration, but I am also I'm definitely at the place where I'm saying that I don't want the business operating in this way in this town.
Thank you.
I actually have a question.
Certainly.
For Attorney Heim.
Certainly, Mr. Byrne.
What is the process for a revocation of a license? What is the, from here moving forward, what does that look like?
So with any penalty that the board imposes, once the written decision is issued, whether that's a suspension, a change of conditions on the license, or revocation, the license holder would have 5 days to appeal to the ABCC. And if they did appeal, there would be a formal hearing before the ABCC where I would represent the town's decision in arguing that the decision needs to be upheld. The license holder could make arguments as to why the penalty should not stand. And the ABCC would consider all of that evidence on a de novo review and determine, again, whether a violation occurred and what the appropriate level of penalty is. In my opinion, there is little question or little basis to question whether a violation occurred here. It's merely a matter of whether the ABCC would agree with the penalty meted out based on the history of this particular establishment.
Mr. Heim, if we are to proceed with a revocation and there's the ABCC proceed, there's nothing to prevent the suspension to go into effect once we finalize our decision, though.
So by the terms of the previous decision, which was not appealed, there's an automatic 5 days that were held in abeyance for the previous violation. You'd be finding and that in that probationary period, another violation could not occur. So 5 days will be served no matter what, or should be served no matter what, because that was held basically in abeyance, like a suspended sentence. In terms of a suspension plus revocation, that would be, I think, unusual. If you're voting to revoke the license, you're essentially pulling the license.
Correct, but there's an appeals period, presumably, before the revocation takes effect, so we would still, the probation would still, probationary suspension would
Yes.
still kick in.
Yes,
That's all.
the probationary suspension, the suspended sentence would still kick in, that's correct.
Okay. I want to say,
Can I clarify?
certainly,
Sorry,
certainly.
John,
Mr.
excuse me.
Curro.
So I just want to be clear. So if tonight we vote to revocate revoke the license, he has 5 days to appeal to ABCC, is that what you said?
5 business days after the written decision is issued. So the written decision presumably would be voted upon this board on July 24th.
Okay.
It would be issued presumably the next day. The license holder would have 5 business days to appeal that decision, and then the ABCC is relatively prompt in scheduling a hearing, but it can take a little bit of time.
But here's my question. After the written decision, and we vote that, is he then closed for 5 days while he appeals?
You know what, Mr. Greeley, I'd have to double check on where the ABCC is at this point in time in terms of, typically speaking, something like this would be stayed while a proceeding was pending.
Okay.
It'd probably be advisable for the town to agree to that, even if we don't. Even if they wouldn't strictly require us to, it would probably be advisable for us to allow a business to stay open while the appeal process was continued.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I do support going forward with revocation, and I recognize that it's a harsh penalty, but in light of the pattern that we've seen, I think there's a pattern of negligence. I'm disturbed by a couple of things in your testimony this evening. First of all, the first question I had was, what was the punishment for the employee? You said, I think he was suspended for a few weeks. So it was not specific, and you said, I think he was. There was no specificity there. That indicates to me a lack of firm management. You didn't seem to have a firm grasp of your previous violations for other violations of our health code bylaws, even within a time frame of a couple of years. That doesn't indicate to me someone who's taking this seriously. We had the probationary hearing, and right back here, that doesn't indicate to me to someone who's taking this seriously. So I understand that we may not prevail with the ABCC, and I understand that it's a particularly harsh punishment or sanction, but these licenses they're very, very valued. We go through a long vetting process before we issue any of these licenses. I think it was within my first month on this board when we opened up new ones, and people really take strides to try to run a good business and be responsible citizens corporate citizens in our community, and I'm not seeing that here. So I will support the motion for revocation. I don't know what the pleasure of the board is. If it does not prevail, I will support as harsh a penalty as we have an appetite for.
Just one last pitch to anybody who's on the fence. First of all, everything that was spoken here, presented to the board tonight, is something that we can use with the hearings with the ABCC in terms of revocation. I just want to stress to my colleagues, there's been so many serious incidents, and I've seen the same laissez-faire, dismissive response and attitude by this manager who, this being the third, fourth, or fifth incident, depending on how you count it, has never been in the establishment with the exception of the illegal possession of marijuana on the premises. That one time he was in there. And I think he's told us so many mistruths. I don't think he takes the seriousness of how he's been conducting the business and what he is a purveyor of with his alcohol license. I don't think he gets it. I don't think he's going to get it. And I think going for a revocation, and again, having worked at ABCC for 15 years, I think we certainly have laid the groundwork and created a record. Specifically, you know, the cherry on top of the ice cream cone or ice cream sundae, the very words of the manager who came in here tonight, he didn't defend it, he deflected it. I think I personally feel insulted by the remarks directed towards myself and this board, directed towards the two teenagers. I am extremely insulted and do not have any trust in this individual because I believe, by my count, he's told 9 mistruths. And it's basically trying to answer and deflect for another question. And I don't feel that this man should be entitled, manager or not, and he's obviously not in there as a manager, and he just doesn't get it. I don't think we should entrust him any longer with one of our alcohol licenses here in the town of Arlington. And we didn't even go into Mr. Burns' questioning, which I appreciated, in terms of the delivery aspect of your business, which I can pretty much guarantee you all that if this gentleman were given another 6 to 12 months, we'd be having a hearing on that particular facet of his business, but that's not before us tonight. So that's why I'm going as strong as I can for the revocation, because I just don't think he gets it, and he's not going to get it, and there's nothing we can do that will correct this situation, and we have to be the gardener and the foster and the bearers of this alcohol license, and we should revoke it.
Mr. Grillo.
Not to drag this out, but I would like to ask one more question, and then I have a final comment. But, so you vote for revoking. I'm not, but perhaps my colleagues will. And it goes to ABCC, and they say, no, that was too severe a penalty for not checking an ID. Now I understand you've done nothing to help yourself tonight in terms of the testimony we've heard. There is a series of events here that are unfortunate. Does the penalty fit the crime? I mean, revoking a license, I hope to God the message has gotten through to you tonight, how serious we are taking this and the lives of the people in Arlington. But I just can't go all the way to revoking myself for not checking an ID, which is absolutely wrong. We had 2 other cases tonight. We've had, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 cases before. So I guess I gave the comment before my question to town council. If they vote to revoke and ABCC says that's too severe, where are we?
So, Mr. Greeley, thank you for the question. I think one of 2 things would happen. Most likely, they would remand for a different punishment to be meted out by this board. There is the possibility that they could try to direct the punishment and say, this is what it will be, but I think it's more likely in this scenario that they would remand for this board to come up with some other punishment with some guidance.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments? So we have a motion on the floor by Ms. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Dunn for revocation of the license of Arlington Liquors. Ready? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, it's three in favor, two opposed. The motion carries. Thank you very much.
May I address the court? I mean, the panel, I'm sorry, in the final statement?
One final statement. Yeah.
Thank you. I've been in this business for a really long time. I own 3 liquor stores, and this is the first time that this has happened, and I believe it's because of our policies. And it's very painful for me to hear this board speaking about me with that I'm with ill regard, because I do take this extremely seriously, and I understand the gift that I have by having this license. And I just want to throw it out there that any of you are welcome to come to any time to my store, and I will present you these ideas that we take away from these individuals and show you my camera system. And obviously we all care about our community, and if there's any ideas above and beyond that we do now, I'm more than willing to listen and cooperate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. That closes our alcohol compliance hearings. We now move to the 7:15 PM hearing on Almont Street, west of Highland Avenue. A request for a repair to a private way and a betterment order.
Thank you, Inspector.
And I have here, thank you, Inspector.
Night.
We have Kim Kerr, resident, representative. Hi.
We're
we can revoke-
really nice people, so don't.
We're not going to revoke your license.
I want to pay to fix my street.
Yay!
I'm here with one of my neighbors, Sue Scarbarino. And so we live on Arlmont, well, I live on the corner of Newport and Arlmont, but my driveway's on Arlmont. And it's sort of a cut through from Highland up to the Brackett School. And it's just been in horrible shape. Our next door neighbor has lived there for over 30 years, and probably 25 years ago they repaved it, and it's in sore need of a repaving. So we got our neighborhood together and are in agreement that we'd like to go forward. We had a hard time getting bids, but we were able to get 3 different bids, and as a group we chose Rich Cooper, who said he would be interested. Last summer, it's taken a long time to get here, so that's what we're here for tonight.
Move approval.
I have a motion by Ms. Mahan. Do I have a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Grilli. Any further questions or comments? None? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can I just say, as a parent of 3 teenagers, I appreciate the attention that you take to the alcohol and just what I've heard tonight, so thank you.
Thank you very much, and we apologize for making you wait so long, but yeah.
It's okay, my husband had to leave to pick up our son.
Thank you very much. We now move on to appointments. Arlington Preservation Fund, Arlington Historical Society designee, Robert Frideau, term to expire 6/30/17. Mr. Frideau. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Frideau. Please come to the mic and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, actually, I don't think that 6/30/17 expiration makes any sense. I'm not sure
No, it
about
does not, as a matter of fact.
that. So I was president of the Arlington Historical Society for a while, who was the one that nominated me for this position. And I've renovated some houses. I've moved a house, which y'all let me move through this town once, which I'll probably still remember badly. And I actually borrowed some money from this preservation fund to do that work. So I've got a lot invested in the town, and I would like to help this way.
Move approval.
We have a motion by Ms. Mahan,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Dunn, I think, beat you to the punch.
He said it loud.
Said it out loud. Do we have any questions or comments from Mr. Frideau?
I just want to, with our motion to approve, just to verify with the Historical Society, the date, because
I
Bob,
would say that it's the 19, but I'll check tomorrow and make sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Certainly not the 17th.
Yeah, no, but not for a week would be bad.
and I've known Bob Frideau and Rosemary Schultz for many, many years. Bob cited some of the donations that they've given back to the community in terms of moving that historic home, and you do an awful lot of work at the Jason Russell House, and you and Rosemary have always been very kind to me in terms of, different efforts that I've worked on. So I'm thrilled to see you working in this capacity, picking up on that we probably have the wrong date, so you can follow up with Marie, Mrs. Kropelka, in the next day or two. And please say hi to Rosemary for me, and thank you for doing this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very
for your
much.
All
service.
right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Yeah, take care.
Vote.
Oh, vote.
Wait, you're not in yet?
Aye. All opposed? You're now appointed. Get sworn in.
Now you can run out quickly.
Okay. Moving on, next, licenses and permits. Request for alteration of all-premise alcohol license, Scooter, 92 Summer Street, Cecilia Bonnier. Please come forward and just identify yourselves and...
Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Didier Bonnier.
Cecilia Bonnier.
We're both owner of Scutra.
Okay.
We are basically coming on the front of you this evening to try to do a little patio in the back of Scutra in the property line of our property limits for the restaurant. What we're trying to bring is to be a facility which can be bicycle friendly to all the bike path people who comes, providing a bike rack for them to be able to have access to the patio. The only access to the patio would be through the front door of the restaurant. There would be no access through the actual patio unless it's a fire alarm or anything like that. We have an access for handicap also, which is built in the plans. What we're trying to do is basically try to bring a little sense of Italy in the back, some nice upscale umbrella, a nice retaining wall, some colorful kind of chairs and things like that. And that's it. We have come here 15 years ago for the first time. And then we came back 10 years ago to get an expansion also to go up to 60 seats. And now we're basically on the front of you to try to...
This might be our last time coming in front of you.
Probably the last time. And try to do something on the front to have a nice little dining area for some lunch hour, but not every day during lunch hours, maybe only during the weekends, and providing a dining area in the evening outside.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Mr. Greeley.
So move approval subject to all conditions as set forth. I keep trying to look at this thing, and it keeps turning on me. So the bike racks, you're going to hang the bikes?
No.
Oh.
What you see on the wall of the building is basically try to decoratify them, to try to make it kind of floating to the whole concept of bicycle passing by, people walking by. We know that we are bringing some nice decorations, some nice umbrella, which will eliminate the sun to beat on everybody who eats there. And basically, that's it.
It looks like a fantastic project for a fantastic restaurant.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Mr. Greeley, motion by
Second.
Mr. Greeley, seconded by Mr. Byrne. Mr. Dunn?
Yeah, I really like this. I think that you're really taking advantage of the bike path, and like that space back there is, it's kind of like dead space right
awful.
now. Yeah, and you're really going to convert it into something beautiful and useful. And I think this is great. I'm very excited.
I agree. Ms. Mahan?
I'm thrilled that you're doing this. I have a bias because I absolutely adore and love your restaurant. And there's very few restaurants, because of my family time and everything, that affords me the opportunity to go there. Your staff has always been very professional. And one thing that I'm extremely comfortable with is, unlike your neighbor that we had in previously in the meeting, and who's right next to you, and we made a motion to revoke his license, and if you just got a notice from them that, I guess I can't say that word, it looks like a pig, you know what, but it's a mess out there. You run a full-service restaurant that entails, not just alcohol, but, in terms of disposing of, waste, and I've never seen one speck of trash. It's amazing when I look at the two businesses, the one on the right, that's just a nightmare, and then what you're operating out of this establishment, and I've never seen one cup or anything, lying in the driveway or the parking lot. And so I'm extremely comfortable that where you're proposing to put this outdoor seating, to me, is somewhat of a sacred space, in terms of, you will be sort of commissioner of the face of Arlington for everybody going by in the bike path, but I am fully confident that you will maintain those premises as well as attract and put the suitable outdoor seating that hopefully you're going to have, you know, a waiting line or, you know, tables filled all the time. So I'm so excited that you're doing this, and I know you do the right due diligence and take care of what you need to do and maintain it as you have these past 15 years with your current business. So I wish you good luck, and I pray to the Lord that I actually can come and, you know, be there for the outdoor seating, but if it's not, it's just, you know, just because of everything else going on. But I wish you much luck and continued success, and I'm so glad you're a little bit more putting roots into Arlington, because I don't want you to go away.
Thank you. Any of my other colleagues have any questions or comments? All right. Hearing none. On a motion by Mr. Grilli, seconded by Mr. Byrne. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Very much. We look forward to seeing the improvements. Next, we have approval of the Sidewalk Cafe, Bistro Douai, 190 Massachusetts Avenue, with Wayne Duprat.
I was wondering why he was, why is he, I thought he'd run out of here.
Hi, I'm Martha Penzenik. I'm an architect here in Arlington, and I have an additional document that I would like to submit. And what it is that it's the full block where Bistro Douai is located. So that it shows the existing on the bottom, as opposed to talking about a smaller partial of that, and I don't want to be able to see the whole thing like that before. So we're proposing a outdoor seating cafe that's 32 feet 6 inches wide from outside of planter to outside of planter by 10 feet 1 inch outside of planter to outside of planter, which is then 3 feet 6 inches off the face of the building. We're also asking that in accordance with the guidelines that would be able to overlap the adjacent restaurant space by 4 feet 6 inches. We have to the right of where the outdoor seating is shown a light post, a crosswalk pole, and a couple of other signposts which prevent the cafe seating from being entirely opposite the storefront width, which is indicated to be 50 feet 1 inches going over to the outside face of the party wall for the adjoining restaurant. And as you can see, we're showing 2 tables seating 4, and then 4 tables seating 2, and you have the packet showing the products, which range from a little battery-operated candle on the table to the tables and chairs, umbrellas, the stanchion, the ropes, the planters, and so on. It was noted in one of the comments that we received from...
Excuse me. Sorry, I was coughing. Excuse me.
The guidelines say a minimum of 36 inches for the public sidewalk, and we're proposing 42 inches, so it is greater than what the minimum is stated in the guidelines.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything else to your presentation that you wish? Do I have a motion from the board? Or questions? You want to ask questions?
Yeah, I do have a question, actually. So I'm looking at the 2 different sketches that you provided.
Mm-hmm.
And please forgive me if I was looking at the picture that you passed around when, if you went through this already. But are you proposing to have planters and benches removed that are already there?
Yes. There is a planter that is located in that 4-foot 6-inch overlap that I spoke of. And we've been in conversation with Alec Carter, and we've gotten permission to fill that in.
Okay. It's something that I'm certainly taking into consideration as I'm thinking about this right now, and I'd be curious if there was any other way to do it without removing any permanent structures, but it looks like Adam might have something to say.
It's not considered to be a permanent structure.
Mr. Manager.
Oh, I'm sorry. When the materials that are going to be going into the planter are paving stones, so that they're not permanent. That was part of the request.
If
They
I may.
can be laid in and then taken out again.
I'd like to recognize the manager so he could
I
provide
beg your
some more.
pardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As was mentioned, the owners have worked very closely with the town, with both Ali Carter and Mike Rademacher. It just so happened that this planter in question never had the tree that was designed to be placed in this planter planted, so it was a fortunate situation that no tree needed to be removed. And as was just described, at the expense of the owners, a temporary solution will be put in, so no permanent infrastructure will have to be removed. The benches can be unscrewed and moved, and the planter can be filled in temporarily with the pavers, such that if there was ever, they didn't want to use it as outdoor seating anymore, or something else changed, the planter would still be there.
And it will be, and that area will be vacant, say, in the off-season. Oh, do we have any plans to, is there any other plans to do any other work there, say, when it's not too nice out and people don't want to sit outside?
Plans in terms of something different than the
Yeah.
planter, or? I guess we would probably, at this point, be committing to keeping those pavers there for the winter season as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Did you have some, Mr. Dunn?
I did. Can you tell me about the conversation with the neighbor about using some of their space, or the space in front of them, I should say? Has someone talked to the neighbor about?
Did you talk to them about
No,
it?
they're aware of the plans. They're aware of the intent to put the sidewalk cafe there. They're also aware of the marker of the measurements, but there hasn't been like any further conversation to say, per se. They just know that they're aware that our intention is to put this cafe in, and they're aware of the marker, like the measurement on the pavement as to where that would go. Because there's another planter directly in front of their store, which does have a tree. And so we've proposed to put the cafe to almost the edge of that planter.
So who talked to them?
That was me, but it was a very informal conversation as we were taking measurements outside of the restaurant. Excuse me.
Mr. Greeley?
Well, could the bench be moved somewhere else? I can understand removing it, but can it
Oh,
be
the
moved?
benches are going to be relocated.
To the corner.
Oh, it is gonna be,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, both of
Good.
them.
Send
Yeah.
that over to kids.
I move
Do you wanna see
approval
this?
subject to conditions as set forth.
Mr.
Okay, I've got a couple things on the floor here. Just a second. Mr. Greeley just made a motion. Is there a second to Mr. Greeley's motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dunn. If I could recognize town council, I'll recognize you, Ms.
No,
Mahan.
please, Ms. Mahan first, of course.
Ms. Mahan.
Okay, did you want to clarify something?
No,
I'm gonna go off
no,
on
it's a
different
separate
tangent.
point, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this, that I guess the minimum requirement is 36 inches? 36 inches, and you say you are doing?
42.
42. A question for the manager, and then a question for Mr. Dupree. We have the memo from the Commission on Disability, where they stated, ultimately the ideal would have been 48 inches. But then it says that the Disability Commission recommends to the Board of Selectmen that a compliance monitoring process be developed in addition to the restaurant providing training for their staff to ensure that that accessibility is maintained after the permitting process. So I don't know if this is a question to the manager, because it seems like you and the planning department are wholeheartedly 100% on board with this, and/or if it's a question for Mr. Dupree in terms of the fact that you're already on notice that you need to follow guidelines. How do we effectuate that suggestion by the Commission on Disability regarding they're not going to be at the 48 inches, which is what they recommend. They're going to do the 38.2 or 42 inches.
I think the answer, to, if I may, Mr. Chair, is the Board of Selectmen would need to vote to agree with the Disabilities Commission and choose to pursue a compliance monitoring program. And if the Board of Selectmen chose to do that, then I could put together, working with most likely a combination of, I guess it would probably be maybe an engineering, planning, building inspections, find the right combination of town staff to do compliance monitoring that we could then bring back probably at relicensure every year to see whether or not the actual terms of the permit have been complied with.
And it seems what they're saying to me is that, basically, just to kind of minimize it, that there be some sort of process instituted that basically says to everybody, new and not so new employees, this is how you have to set it up all the time to ensure that access that you're guaranteeing, versus having a town employee go out there and do all this extra work. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, I think there's two things. They disagree with the board's policy and the federal law requiring 36 inches. And they also are asking for more compliance checks. And I think what they're getting at with the compliance checks is, this is what the drawing looks like, and I'm sure that's exactly what this setup and other setups across town will look like the first day that they're set up. But chairs move, barriers move, things happen that might make what looks great on a drawing no longer compliant. So that's, I think they're saying two things. I think they're saying they want a broader stretch, a greater stretch than what's allowed currently under the board's rule-setting process for for sidewalk cafes, but they would also like active compliance monitoring to make sure that what's presented is what's actually in the field on a day in and day out basis.
And if I could ask Mr. Dupree, and I understand, I wish, the federal guidelines are what they are, and it's 36 inches, and you're doing 40 or 42, and it would be nice to have the 48, so I agree that. But in terms of their concerns, I want to find out if there's sort of a middle road, middle solution to this in terms of, is there something that you can say that you will file with the board or the planning department in terms of you're going to have some sort of policy or protocol that to make sure this plan is visible to employees and somebody working, a manager or assistant manager, when the outdoor cafe is in use, that person, he or she, will be responsible to make sure that employees are guided to basically set it up the same way every time so that you are ensuring this extra. Do you know where I'm getting with that, Mr. Dupree?
I think there's a number of things that I think there's a number of things that we can do, whether it's having the plan posted, whether it's a copy of the plan with the setup and breakdown instructions for the outside space, or whether it's marking in some way, in a discrete way of marking the space, where the people who are setting it up and breaking it down know specifically where things are supposed to go. I didn't come here tonight prepared to necessarily answer the question, but I do think that there's a number of things that we can do to make sure that that stays compliant.
Well, could I take it as an agreement from the microphone, instead of setting up compliance checks and, because I'm trying to think of town employee staff and the best use of that. I think what I'm hearing is some sort of agreement that when this is all said and done and it's put into place, that you will come up with some sort of guideline and policy in terms of making sure the right people know where to put the right things the same way every time.
That's correct.
And then
yes.
if after that happens, because you are going above the 36 inches is required by federal law for the Commission on Disabilities Act, then if we then get a complaint that that's not happening, then that's where I think I would ask the chair to ask the town manager to have someone from the town go out and do a compliance check. I'm just trying to find a better, more agreeable way that we can get that recommendation. So if I could add that, I can't remember who. Well, I'll just take that as a gentleman's agreement from the microphone in terms of you can work that out with Ally and whoever else. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mahan. Mr. Byrne, I think you had something.
I do, actually. To follow up on Mr. Dunn's point about the neighbor, not being really fully aware of what's going on, is what it seems to me. So I'll support the motion as long as it's pending the neighbor's approval, if this is going to be in front of their property. Because I am worried a bit about, a bit of a precedence issue where, moving forward, I'm not sure if I want to allow for outdoor seating to go into the front of another neighbor's building, at least without their being aware and, agreeable to it.
I think we do have precedent.
Do
It is in the guidelines.
That it can be in front without their awareness?
Well, no, but
Without
that
their
it can't.
approval?
No, I'm just saying that it is in the guidelines that it can be beyond the storefront.
So it can be on the storefront, but
To the
it seems to
right or
me like
left.
it would be a good neighborly thing to do to get their sign
Absolutely.
off.
And I'm absolutely happy to do that. I know that in the limited conversations that we have had, that they've been very cooperative, and we have been respectful, as equally as we have been respectful. So I don't believe it will be an issue, and I'm happy to bring that back to the board.
Who is it? Is it the market, the fruit market? Who's the neighbor? Do we know?
Oh, it's the hot
The
pot.
hot
Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I apologize.
Did you have something more, Mr. Dunn?
Mr. Chairman, if Mr. Byrne, can we, is it through you, can we get the mover to, is that amenable?
Mr. Greeley, you're talking about?
Yes.
You said Mr. Byrne, didn't you?
But what I just said.
Mr. Byrne said we should, as a
Condition
condition.
of the license.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I accept that as a friendly amendment.
Because you're a friendly guy.
And it's 9:30.
I assume-
As compared to, you're the softie, what am I?
Well,
No, don't say that, we're on.
Do we have any more discussion on this?
That's
one?
fine,
Okay. And a motion by Mr. Greeley, second by Mr. Dunn, and in such a
Amended
friendly
by
way
Mr.
amended by Mr. Greeley and Mr. Byrne. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Great, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Just got the sign off from the neighbor. Great, thank you. Okay, next, we move on to Citizens Open Forum. Except in unusual circumstances, any matter presented for consideration of the board shall neither be acted upon nor a decision made the night of the presentation in accordance with the policy under which the open forum was established. It should be noted that there is a 3-minute time limit to present a concern or request.
Marie's grabbing.
Mr. Pelker, has anyone signed up for Citizens Open Forum?
Jane, but she was here for school, just so she's not.
She's gone, she's gone. Anyone here for Citizens Open Forum who did not sign up? Okay. No, you're on the agenda, actually, Ann, yeah. Okay, hearing none, we close Citizens Open Forum. We now move on to traffic rules and orders, other business, request, Oktoberfest at the Old Schwam Mill, October 14, 2017. Edward Gordon, Museum Administrator, Old Schwam Mill, Lynette Bennett, Communications Assistant, special one-day beer and wine license, and Mill Lane between Lowell Street and Bridge over Millbrook Street closing. You could please come forward and
Hi.
identify yourselves, please.
Anne LaRoyer, I'm a board member of the Old Shaw Mill.
Okay.
Ed Gordon, Site Administrator and Director of Museum Programs for the Old Schwab Mill.
Doreen Stevens, I'm also a board member.
Okay, great, thank you.
So it seems highly appropriate that we're asking for a beer license for Oktoberfest now. After all that you've gone through tonight, I hope that we will live up to all the proper expectations. But yes, we, as the Old Shaw Mill, as you know, is a historic mill in town, and having been founded by German immigrants to establish a woodworking business, and very successful, and now a preserved historic museum. We just thought it would be a fun thing to do an Oktoberfest and to celebrate the German heritage, and also especially to draw attention to Arlington Heights, and to start to maybe develop this as a annual or biannual event, if all goes well, to kind of be a counterpart to the Feast of the East and Arlington Alive and everything that's going on in sort of that end of town, but start to draw a little more attention to the Heights, and we can be a focus for that, and we're already working with many other merchants that are going to be sponsors of our event, as well as neighbors and people that are involved in the Heights. So that's part of our goal, is to make it a community event, family-friendly, We'll have children's activities and games and tours of the mill and, you know, a variety of things. It's a Saturday, it's 12 to 4. We will have a beer vendor in a special tent, and we'll have a special sales table where we'll sell the tickets to buy the beer, and we'll check IDs and, you know, do all that. And the people that'll be serving the beer, it's Aeronaut Brewery, it's in Somerville, if any of you know it. They are licensed, they have that tip certification, the people that will be serving. So I think that we put together the package of materials that you got, and hopefully we answered your questions, or happy to answer any others. We had a security plan. We spelled out some of the things that we thought of, but if there's any other things that you want us to be aware of, we have talked with the police. So we would like to have a policeman on duty, because we will close Mill Lane just between Lowell Street and the bridge that goes over the brook there, so that the residents of Watermill Place can still get into their parking lot from Fraser Road. So we won't impede anybody's getting into their cars or anything. And we'll have some off-site parking in the lot, kind of, I don't know what to call it there, across on Lowell Street, the big lot where there's a big moving company. What's the name of it?
Gentle Giant and, yeah.
No, it's not Gentle Giant anymore, but
Oh,
it's kind of over there.
Blue and white truck, I know what you, yeah.
Anyway, so we've talked with them, and they're going to let us use some of that space for parking, and then there'll be on-street parking and stuff. And since we're right next to the bikeway, we'll have signage up there, and hopefully get a lot of people coming in that way. The other thing is that we've been talking with Beth Locke at the Chamber of Commerce, and there's a lot of things going on in Arlington in October. So we came up with a little slogan of Celebrate Arlington in October, just the way in June there was a lot of things going on in East Arlington. So there's the Chamber of Commerce Taste of Arlington is in October, the Arlington Center for the Arts Open Studios. Actually happens to be the same day that our event is, that we found that out afterwards, but we're working together to try to do joint publicity to kind of make Arlington really, you know, be a happening place that day. And then the film festival is also that month. So hopefully this Oktoberfest will become an annual event, or at least a big thing for Arlington to enjoy, and hope you'll all come and join us. Do you want to add anything?
Just that we're working on getting a good staff of volunteers for that day, so please put the word out that we're looking for helpers.
And we have 2 bands.
And we have 2 bands.
Yes, that's right, music, I forgot.
Oompa?
Of course we'll have music.
Oompa?
No, maybe on a You can
Heavy
bring-
metal, what?
But we might have a recording of Oompa.
Oh, okay. We gotta have some tuba.
Be a variety.
Yeah. Ms. Mahan?
If it's in here and I didn't see it, I apologize, but the event will go from 12 noon to 5 p.m.
4 p.m.
4 p.m. Oh, that's when you're asking. Okay, well,
We did talk about 5 originally, I don't know if that.
it doesn't really matter. You're up, in the
12
sense
to
that
4.
your thing says noon to 5 for the event. It says you want to set up at 10 a.m. in the morning and you'll be out of there by 6 p.m. So it does, in here you're requesting up to 5, but now you're saying it's going to be till 4 p.m. That's fine. That's the only reason. I'm not trying to mess up your event. I'm just going by what was in the application. My question is, in terms of, not to be the heavy on the alcohol, but I see that, you know, it suggests there be police details and the alcohol be consumed in the tent. Are you going to have, or what process will you have in place in terms, I'm assuming in a 4-hour time span, 2 beers or should maybe be the max, or maybe, I'm assuming you have a max. How are you going to, I don't want to say police that, but do you have a max? What is it? And how are you going to do that to make sure, you know, is it basically, I mean, how are you going to do that so people aren't drinking 4, 5, 6, 7 beers?
There are food trucks, so it's alcohol with food. And I think a 2-beer max would be appropriate. And we have a licensed bartender who would help with the enforcement, and we will have volunteers in the tent monitoring. It's a family-friendly event, and we have all sorts of kids' activities. And I think after 2 beers, people would want to get up naturally and move around. So I think hopefully it will be done in a friendly way.
Well, if you can come up with some sort of, whether with the police department or some other town department, maybe people get 2 bands, and when you go up, you give a band, and then you go up, you give it, I don't know, I'm
So
not, I
you're
don't know if
just
any of my
asking-
colleagues.
We could stamp, we could stamp.
Okay, that would be my only concern, however you all.
Which one of you is up first? Mr. Dunn?
I'd just say that this would be an unusual, I can't recall us having created a process like this for something like that, like this in the past. I'm in general would probably defer to the expertise of the bartender and say that that's what we're asking for in their training. I'm hesitant to impose something, a structure like that on them.
Yeah, well, I went to an event recently, it was Town Hall, it was a fundraiser, I think it was Arlington Eats. You went up and gave your credit card, it only allowed you to buy 2 drinks for the whole night, which I didn't buy any drinks, but and if you tried to use that, so you got like 2 tickets, and that was it. If you try to use that credit card again, you couldn't buy any more. So I don't know, I'll leave it to you all. I don't want to impose that, because I know Ann and personally, and everyone who's working on this, I'm going to leave it for you all to figure out how you want to effectuate that. So I wouldn't impose it as a condition, I just wanted to raise it as a suggestion, because I'm assuming and hoping that this is a successful event and grows, and, you know, you have more and more people there, and I can see perhaps other like events coming our way, and if we already have something established that works, we can say, you know, you may want to try it this way, just to be responsible, that's all. So not as a condition, but I just wanted to raise it to you all. I'll let you work it out, Ann.
Thank you, yeah, we'll figure out some kind of a way we can monitor that, or...
Sorry, I spoke out of turn.
I would agree with Dan that I don't think that should be a written term of condition for any events at this point yet, so, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, actually, I don't think we have a motion on the table yet.
Move approval.
Mr. Byrne, moved by Mr. Byrne,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Mahan. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
We'll see you
Some
in
vote.
October.
That's how I was this morning, I couldn't get my words out.
Yeah, well, that's how I get this.
I didn't
time
have
of
that
night.
problem tonight.
Okay, next up, we have presentation, Green Infrastructure Retrofit, intersection of Edgerton and Herbert. Mr. Chouinard, the town engineer.
Thank you.
This one that doesn't have anything to do with alcohol.
Has it been a long enough day for you, Wayne?
Good evening, board members. My name is Wayne Schnard. I'm the town engineer at the DPW Engineering Division, and I'm here to just provide a presentation for a pilot project that we'd like to work on cooperatively with the Mystic River Watershed Association. Let me start by saying in years past, we teamed up with the town of Belmont and Mystic River Watershed Association for a 604B water quality grant, planning grant. And this was one of the results of that grant. So this would be used for improving water quality with low-impact development. We had some goals for this particular location because it was a one-way street. The intersection is at Herbert and Edgerton. And so what makes this easier is traffic on Edgerton is going one way. It's approximately 28 feet wide. The travel lane is typically 12 feet. What we propose here is to, in essence, put a bump out or a curb extension that will naturally intercept gutter flow coming down the street. And if you'll see, there's some little gray areas on each side of the street that provides velocity reduction. It's just a stone forebay. After that, the water would go into a bio-retention area, which is an inundation, you might know the word rain garden. And what it does is allows the water to go through a special mix of soil with compost and sand and topsoil that allows the bacteria, the microbes in the soil, as well as the roots of the plants to pull out contaminants. As the water fills up,
the existing infrastructure that's there, we're going to try to utilize our catch basins. They will be, in essence, an overflow. So as it fills up, does its duty. Anything that is an overflow goes into the catch basin just as if it would today. You just got some water quality benefits in the meantime. So part of this that we wanted to pay attention to are the issues would be turning radius for vehicles, public safety vehicles, fire trucks, line of sight, sight distance, and what we're proposing here, I think will meet that perfectly. We're proposing low herbaceous plants, similar to, I don't know if you're familiar with the rain garden at the Hardy School.
Mm-hmm.
We want to go with something that's herbaceous, that doesn't have something woody. Woody will snap when plows push snow into it. So this is more of a resilient vegetative growth that just grows low, nothing tall like a shrub to block line of sight of a turning vehicle. So the vegetation will help solve that. The other benefit of this is there'll be very minimal impacts on parking for the abutters because you're not allowed to park within a certain distance of each intersection. Another benefit of this is obviously pedestrian safety. If you'll see there, the crosswalk will be shorter, therefore the pedestrians will have shorter distance to cross in a roadway. So it's really a pilot project that we wanted to explore so that we could examine how it works to see if we could scale it to other intersections or other similar locations in town. One last benefit is July 1st, we go into our new MS4 permit in town. And it's actually forward-thinking a lot, but within 6 years, we need to put in a pilot project that does exactly what we're doing here. So we would have a pilot project in year one, probably springtime of next year would be our goal. And we wouldn't have to, wait till year 6. We'd already have something implemented.
Move approval.
So the reason
sorry.
I'm in front of
said
you
one last
is
thing.
to
Sorry.
let you know that similar to the curb extensions when they built the CVS, some drivers may not pay attention completely, and they may, let's say, drive into the curb. Our goal is there to put up appropriate signage with retro-reflective materials, and I think that's probably going to be our biggest issue there, is just to make sure people be aware of it. There will be a public outreach and a meeting with the abutters that Mystic River Watershed Association will organize, so we're hoping to reach out to the neighbors, and I just think this has some good benefits to it, and we just wanted to let you be aware of it and have any input from you.
Thank you. Are you still moving approval, Ms. Mahan?
Move approval, one question.
Move approval. Do we have a
There's a
second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Burke.
I'm just curious, why is Mystic River Watershed organizing this neighborhood meeting?
Why are they? They've offered to. It's a grant opportunity, and they have to fulfill certain requirements of the grant, which has to do
Okay.
outreach from DEP is part of the grant.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Dan?
Yeah, just one question. So, first of all, I think this is very interesting. I like it. Given that this is a pilot, how are you going to evaluate whether or not it did what it was supposed to? Like, what's the measurement that says this was a successful pilot versus a failed pilot?
That's very interesting. DEP has a lot more experience with these now, and we had to actually finagle our project input on this. The the Mystic River Watershed was going to provide sampling. DEP said they were not interested in the sampling. That sampling was going to be part of the project project input from Mystic River, which had to meet a certain threshold. They didn't want that, so they came up with another thing that had to do with outreach or something else that had to do with input from Mystic River, because everybody was putting in some effort into the process. But DEP didn't ask for it. I think because of just the more this is getting built, the more people are aware of the ability for them to pull the contaminants. The UNH Stormwater Center has done numerous studies on it. As long as it's maintained and taken care of, it's been proven to reduce contaminants and, more importantly, phosphorus as well from the runoff.
Sounds like the pilot is, if we get more funding, we can do it in more places.
That's kind of what I got too.
No, I think this is really innovative, and I appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
Very good. I agree, and I appreciate your leadership overall with the stormwater. I know that you've been running this series now for years on the stormwater. Well,
It's been a while since we
yeah,
did.
it's been a long time. It's been a long time, so. Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Byrne. All those in favor? Aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a quick question.
I'm sorry.
So, poor drivers like Mrs. Mahan, the curb is high enough they can't drive over this somehow?
No.
Did I understand that?
It's a typical curb.
Okay.
That was part of my issue, when we put
I
a,
didn't know where he was talking about, because I grew up on 23 Egerton Road. And
Oh.
I'm sitting there saying, where's this Edgerton?
call it Egerton.
Egerton,
I learned
yeah.
Edgerton, I'm an outsider, so I don't necessarily.
Yeah, that's okay, that's okay.
But
No,
I would say,
was
I
racking my
would not
brain
say
until
that
I
you
got
cannot
this.
drive over it, hence our experience on the median
I
at
made-
Oak Hill and Summer Street, where many people have driven over that. They're not supposed to, and it causes problems, but people are gonna rely on drivers to pay attention, hopefully.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're going to take another try at this vote. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for staying so late. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Next up, we have the report on economic development matters, request for approval, vacant storefront registry fee, and update on economic development activities. Ally Carter, Economic Development Coordinator, please come to the mic and introduce yourself, Ally.
Hi, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm Ally Carter. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator for the town, and I'm here to present a recommendation for a registration fee for the registration and maintenance of vacant commercial and industrial buildings bylaw, which, for the sake of brevity, I'm just going to refer to as the bylaw for the rest of this conversation. Over the course of this spring, the town manager, town council, director of planning and community development, the building inspector, and myself have met to review the purpose of this bylaw and to ensure its smooth and efficient implementation. After careful review of existing town fees, we recommend a $400 registration fee for the town's vacant storefront registry. There are two fees in town that are relevant to this bylaw. One is the certificate of inspection, which is $100, and then there's the petition to the Building Board of Appeals, which is $400. The building inspector will undertake quarterly inspections of vacant spaces in town to assure that they are up to code and that public health and safety has not been compromised by a lack of building management during a prolonged vacancy. A $400 registration fee would cover the cost of these quarterly inspections, and it's also comparable to the petition to the Building Board of Appeals. The purpose of this bylaw is to assure that property owners are making good faith efforts to lease their spaces and maintaining them properly during periods of vacancy. However, it is not intended to place an undue financial burden on landlords who are trying to lease their spaces but having trouble finding suitable qualified tenants. The $400 registration fee minimally covers the administrative expenses of the town for managing long-term commercial vacancies while not imposing any onerous financial penalties on responsible property owners who happen to have a vacancy in their holdings. In addition, the registration fee can be waived if property owners agree to display artworks in their windows, thereby elevating the local arts community while beautifying the neighborhood during a period of vacancy.
Great, thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments? Mr. Dunn?
I've got a question about the bylaw and also a question about the report.
Okay.
So on the bylaw, are people registering already, or is it just not gone into effect?
It hasn't, we can't actually implement it until this registration fee is set.
Okay, so when will it kick in? When will registration start? Provided we approve this tonight.
Within the next month or so, I think we're ready to go out with a mailing to all that we know are vacant.
Okay. So, thank you. So the question was, separately, you gave us a memorandum with the title is, sorry, it's within the registration thing. But it talks about the vacancy rate, and it lists, and you've got a source of the CoStar, and it says that our vacancy rate is 1% with a 5-year average of 1.2 or something like that. Does that feel like what you're, when you walk down the street, it doesn't feel like 1%?
That's a fair point. And just to be clear, it's the 5-year average is 1.6, and the
Okay.
current average, the current rate is 1.2%.
Okay, thank you.
They're not all as visible. So this is retail, industrial, and office. So some things are not within view, like a story office space. The retail landscape is very visible, particularly ground floor and in some of the neighborhood business districts. When this bylaw was passed, the vacancy rate was much higher. And whether property owners have caught wind of this coming, or they are just motivated by other factors, some of these have already filled up. So the rate, even within the visible retail storefronts, has gone down quite a bit. The remaining vacant storefronts that you still see out there in the world, the majority of them are in the possession of one single property owner.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything from my other colleagues here on this? Did you want to talk at all, any more to the report itself here, or?
I mean, I can. It's late. I want to be respectful of your
Move
time.
approval.
If there's a point you'd like me to emphasize.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Greeley. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much for your work on this, Ally, and thank you for the write-up. It was interesting
Great.
reading.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I think everything else here, save item number 21, is just for those of us sitting up here, and there's some folks here for item number 21, if the board would be willing to take that.
I was just going to say that.
Yep.
I know at least 2 people I recognize, and perhaps the others, maybe not, but.
Okay, with consent of the board, I'd like to take item 21 out of order, and so we will take up approval of amendment to traffic rules and orders, Kelwin Manor, Princeton Road, and Alfred Road traffic. Mr. Manager, you're listed here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I can give a brief introduction, and I know both Mr. Hurd and Mr. Wilmhelm might be able to talk about the issue a little bit more as abutters or neighbors in the neighborhood that was being impacted. So this is quite similar to the issue that was before the board probably a year ago now in regards to Lake Street traffic going into the neighborhood as a cut-through, presumably generated by the Waze app or other logarithm-based apps, putting people through the neighborhood. The board voted to put turn restrictions or do not enter restrictions on several of the roads off of Lake on, we'll call it the Alewife side of Lake, and that seemed to be pretty effective in reducing traffic on that side, or at least down Mary Street. One of the, I guess I'd call it unintended consequences, was sending traffic through Kelwin Manor. And what happens is people will go through Kelwin Manor, find their way over to Princeton Road, and then most likely outlet back to Lake up Alfred Road. So I know this board received a letter from one of the residents here tonight that basically, overnight, Alfred Road went from being a sleepy side street to having hundreds of cars going by at rush hour. So myself, Assistant Town Manager Jim Feeney, Bill Coppathorne from the Engineering Division, and Officer Corey Rateau met down on site with Jack Hurd as well as Tom Wilmhelm, looked at different options. I know they both spoke with their constituent groups, their neighborhood groups, about what some of the options were, and where we ended up on was the do not enter sign at Princeton Road, basically where you would exit Kelwin Manor over into the adjacent side streets to outlet onto Alfred Road. It seemed to be the most effective and enforceable way to not put an impediment up permanently, but during rush hour to reduce the traffic, or reduce the cut-through traffic. So at the board's discretion, I don't know if Mr. Hurd or Mr. Wilmhelm want to offer anything further to what I've added.
Mr. Hurd, did you have something more?
I have a question.
At your discretion.
Okay. Before you start, Mr. Byrne has a question for the
So
manager.
I'm just trying to get a grasp on where the signs are going at them. So can you say once again, at like Princeton and Pondview, is that?
Princeton and Pondview, yeah, correct.
That's where the signs are going in both ways?
Well, correct me.
Princeton and Spy Pond.
Yeah, Spy Pond Parkway. that loops up.
Okay, not Pondview, Spy Pond Parkway, yeah, that's right.
Because that way there's still a way.
Yeah.
You don't just get jammed up and have to turn around.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Well,
You
thank
could
you.
introduce yourselves so the millions at home are still watching us.
Yes, you're doing a wonderful job. Jack Hurd, formerly of Colonial Drive, but Spy Pond Parkway, and I'm here with Tom Willem, he's from Alfred Road. And we, as Adam said, we were before the board about 9 months ago to talk about cut-through traffic, and a lot of it is generated by this app Waze, which I don't fully understand, but a byproduct of the changes made in September have significantly increased traffic up Spy Pond Parkway, and they end up on both Alfred and Pondview. And it's in the area, I know there's counters out there, of probably about 400 to 500 cars. I'm on Spy Pond Parkway. The majority of them come up Spy Pond, some go down Princeton. There's various ways they maneuver through Kelvin Manor, but they all end up on Alfred. And some of them are actually getting a little keen. They now go up Pondview because it's a little bit less backup. So it is a serious problem, as I think we've discussed. I think it's an accident waiting to happen. The recommendation, basically, Princeton Road comes through Kelvin Manor, then there used to be a chain there, but it actually continues. So Princeton actually goes all the way to Alfred. A lot of people don't know that that's a continuation. So the recommendation is right at that corner where outside of Kelvin Manor. So if you were coming up Spy Pond or up Princeton, you're going to have do not enter 4 to 7, which is the time consistent with the other signage. And you know, I just think it's a steady stream. My wife this is a true story, and I said I was going to tell this tonight. A couple of days ago, I think on Friday, she was coming up Spy Pond Parkway. She was going 25 miles an hour. 2 people, not one, passed her. They weren't happy that she was going 25 miles an hour. And of course, she wasn't too happy about it when she got home, but that's a true story. And that's just sort of an example of what's happening. It's, you know, I can see a lot of them have the phone right in their hand, you know, if we're out in the street. You know, they're looking at the app, and it's my understanding that the app, and you may know more about this, Tom, they won't change that direction until you folks change the traffic rules in order. Once you do, then that's the trigger. So I think a couple of people have actually contacted them and say, by the way, you're cutting through our neighborhood. But I appreciate the work of the town manager and the assistant and Corey over the last, you know, few incidences, and appreciate your support.
Sure. If you don't mind, I would like to reiterate Jack's point about the incredible help you've gotten from Adam and from Officer Corey and basically all of the town. This is basically my first interaction with town governance at all. I've been here for, well, a homeowner for 5 years, but living here for more than 10 now. And it's just nice to live in a town where you feel like your government actually exists to help you solve problems in your own neighborhood. That's not always the case, so it's really great to see it. But in terms of the Waze app piece of this, yeah, my understanding is once there is a new signage in place, you can actually report that to the app to let them know. So it's honestly our hope that within a few days, with relatively, I understand that there's an issue with the police. They don't have the manpower, obviously, to constantly monitor these sort of things. But it's certainly our hope that within a few days, just by utilizing the technological capabilities of turning people off on Waze, that 80 or 90% of the traffic that goes down my street, and obviously, you know, through various routes.
They swing by my house first, and they go to your house.
And then they park on my road, for a couple of hours.
Right.
But that's certainly what our hope is. So, if you have any questions.
If I could just make one other point, I think Officer Rateau has been involved with this obviously for many years, and I think he pretty much has a plan. We understand the first week or two there'll be some confusion. I suspect he may put up that message board that as of July 20th, there'll be no through traffic, and I think the last time we did it, the police were stationed there, and they questioned them and then said, if, you know, basically letting them know the next time. So I think, and that's been brought up, that, yeah, there'll be some confusion initially, and they'll probably be allowed to go through the first couple of times, but I think once people know it's sort of a dead end, so to speak. Most people, I think, obey the law. I believe that. So.
Mr. Greeley, I think you had something.
Yeah, so I move we amend the traffic rules and orders that the conveyance shall not enter Princeton Road northbound beyond the intersection of Spy Pond Lane from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday, Sunday, and holidays excluded.
Second.
And the reason government works is because you got such a great spokesperson for you here, and Mr. Hurd.
Didn't hurt.
Well understands from his years sitting here on the board, but sorry, that area has such traffic problems, God. And Jack, when you sat on the board, we dealt with Lake Street traffic issues down
And
there.
now you have, they're selling the property over at the Uplands. That's another group of traffic. There's a couple hundred units there. The bowling alley's gonna be knocked down.
Yeah.
Who knows what's gonna happen at Mugar? We hope that will never happen, but it's gonna get worse. And I believe a lot of the people that are cutting through will go somewhere else, maybe through Cambridge or something.
And it's certainly my hope, and I know we're here to talk about this very specific solution to the Kelwin and Alfred issue. I really do hope that you guys can accomplish what you can accomplish about Lake Street. Obviously, solving this little problem doesn't solve the greater problem, and I understand that there's work in progress with TAC and with other groups to make things at least as flow as well as we possibly can, and I appreciate you guys doing that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the addition of the traffic light will be huge.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Thank you. Mr. Chaplin?
I just, I know it's late, but I just wanted to add, I actually did read a story this morning on slate.com talking about Waze and its impact on neighborhoods. Apparently, communities across the entire country are dealing with the same issue. I know sometimes we can feel like, oh, wow, we're dealing with this here, we're the only ones, but people are putting up do not enter signs, they're putting no through traffic signs, they're putting speed bumps up, they're putting speed tables up, they're doing no left turns, no right turns. So we, for lack of a better way to say it, we are in good company with communities grappling with this algorithm that's putting
Waze
cars
is
through our
creating
neighborhoods.
a cottage industry and new traffic controls, apparently.
Or at least new signs.
New signs.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything else? Mr.
I didn't
Dunn?
have anything. I was wondering if there's anyone else in the audience who wanted to talk.
On this?
On this. All right.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak to this? No?
These are my next door neighbors.
Next door neighbors? They're representing you well? All right, very good. We like that. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, on a motion by Mr. Greeley, seconded by Ms. Mahan. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Great. So we'll
Thank you.
Thanks.
move forward.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good night. Okay, with the board's permission, I'd like to just take the next two together. These are two requests that came in from the treasurer, Mr. Carmen. One is for a board appointee to an investment policy working group that he would like to form to review the policies for investing town funds. The other is for a board appointee to the scholarship program working group to also to just take a look at the Dollars for Scholars program and whether any recommended changes might be made to that. With the board's assent, I would like to either ask if somebody is interested from the board, have first dibs to step forward and serve as our representative. If not, be empowered to advertise for candidates so that we could bring forward a candidate for each of these next meeting.
I'd pass on both and see if any of my colleagues,
Anybody chomping at the bit to serve on either of these?
investment or,
I guess I'm somewhat interested in the investment policy one, but I certainly would defer if someone else was excited too.
Okay.
If I sign up for a committee before August 19th, I'm going to be in big trouble.
You're divorced before you're married. Okay, so Mr. Dunn.
I'd be willing to do the scholarship program.
The scholarship program? Okay, well, we have two appointees.
Well, did you want one of them, Mr. Chair?
No, I'm not looking for another committee myself, so, could I have a,
is it a motion or did you appoint?
he asked that the chair appoint, but I didn't want to do that without coming back to the board.
Okay, I
So-
move to appoint, to empower the chair to appoint Mr. Dunn as the board appointee to Investment Policy Working Group.
Okay.
And also, Mr. Greeley is the board appointee to the Scholarship Program Working Group.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Byrne. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Congratulations, we will inform Mr. Carter. Thank you very much. Moving right along, Mr. Chapdelaine, request for approval, community choice aggregation, buck slip insertion into quarterly tax bills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As part of our ongoing outreach in regards to the Community Choice Aggregation Program, we wanted to put a buck slip, or we want to put a buck slip that's sort of that third of a page in the upcoming quarterly tax bill. The Deputy Treasurer, Mike Morris, pointed out to me that, I'm not sure that we frankly have followed this in the past, but to put something in the tax bills of a municipal nature needs Board of Selectmen approval. So it fits. It does not put the cost of the mailing any higher, but just want to vote of the board to be able to move forward with that.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Corelli, seconded by Mr. Dunn.
And I appreciate this new authority that we've just been granted.
So much.
Watch out what you ask
Can
for.
I, just one question on that?
Yeah.
If it hasn't been solved already, if I could ask through the chair, the town manager with Mrs. Kropelka, first of all, my husband had some choice words he didn't like. It was you're in unless you say I want to get out, but that's what the program is. But that leads into my second question is, a couple of people got that letter, didn't read everything, saw what it was. You can go into Dynenergy, is that what it's called? Dynenergy, and they just chucked it out, and now they're realizing they're automatically enrolled in, and they can't find a way when they call Dynenergy. And I think when they call the Selectman's office, once they tossed out that letter, where can we direct them to so they can get another thing, so they can opt out?
So
You know,
if they call the town manager's office, 781-316-3010, give us their name, address, and phone number, we're waiting to get a stack of opt-out forms that can be sent in. So we're compiling a list of people with that same issue. When we get that opt-out form, we'll make sure we provide it to them.
Because honest to God, I'm not making this up. You were there, Mrs. Kropelka. We had someone come in, and he followed me down to the town clerk's office, saying, I called this number again. And I said, let me check with the manager. I think I should refer you to his office, but I didn't want to. So if anybody needs to opt out and unfortunately threw out that original letter, they call the number you cited, and then you'll make it happen. Thank you very much.
Right. We have a motion on the floor right now by Mr. Greeley, seconded by Mr. Dunn. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? It is unanimous. Request for approval, pay and display configuration of library lot meter, Mr. Chapdelaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board may recall some time ago, the board had voted to allow for pay by space with the multi-space meter in the library lot. We being the Parking Implementation and Governance Committee gave it our best effort. We painted the spot numbers on the ground. The winter came in, they were covered by salt, and immediately we couldn't see what space numbers were on the ground. We then went out and measured to see where signs could be installed, and there's not enough width on the sidewalk adjacent to the library building itself to be able to put signs in and have enough of a path, an ADA-compliant path to walk by. And I think we also agreed that we didn't want to be putting signs up on the actual library building itself. So with that said, just to be official, we wanted to ask the board's approval to move back to a pay and display configuration, which does match up with the way it works in the railroad lot and the Russell Common lot.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Greeley. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's unanimous. Request for approval, refer Gibbs School traffic analysis to TAC. Mr. Chapdelaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board once again may recall, as part of the very large discussion about repurposing the Gibbs School as a townwide sixth grade last year, a portion of that discussion focused around traffic coming townwide down to the Gibbs, given that would be a townwide sixth grade, as well as circulation around the school for both drop-off, pickup, and general traffic. So the architects, Feingold Alexander, have worked with VHB on some of that more immediate circulation, so there is some data and work that's already been done. But I have spoken to the chairman of TAC, Howard Muse, and he's very comfortable with TAC's ability to take on a larger project to both look at the trip destination townwide, look at that work that VHB has done in terms of action around the school, as well as look at safe walking routes to schools from the East Arlington neighborhood. So with the board's approval, we could refer it to TAC and they could begin study to have recommendations in place well before the school opens, not this September, but September of 2018.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Byrne.
Second.
Seconded by I think it was Mr. Dunn. He beat you to the punch. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Thank you.
Very well. Thank you very much. We now move on to the town manager's evaluation.
Move approval? Oh, sorry. Probably have more to say.
I just want to say a few words. I'm not going to read this. We can all read. This is available on the website. I want to thank Ms. Malloy. She did a fantastic job of weeding through all of the comments and scores that were given on the evaluation of the manager. I also want to thank the manager for his commitment to this process. He did provide us with a very detailed self-evaluation and has been committed to the evaluation instrument that we've used for several years now. And I want to thank the board members for all their input to the manager on this. We use a numeric scoring system, and we score on a number of different criteria. The report that Ms. Malloy, summary report that she provided to us, actually has the rolled-up score for each of the major categories. It's a 1 to 5 metric that we use, and my mind is that a 5 is basically an A+. It's something kind of over the top. A 4 is pretty much an A, and it's still exceeding expectations. The lowest that Mr. Chapdelaine got as a combined average of the board was 4.41 on any category. That was on organizational leadership and personnel management. I think part of the reason for that is in some ways that may be an area where some of us have the least visibility, although I know that there was some things are highlighted around, delegate what you can, Mr. Manager, and I think that's something that we discussed in the past, but that overall, people are very, very happy with the hires that you make, the team that you have, and the way that you lead them. On public relations and communication, the manager scored a 4.98, so that's practically a perfect score.
That's it?
I want that
I know.
.02.
Practically a perfect
Jeez.
score.
Give me that .02.
Somebody who will go unnamed used fractional scores in there.
Sorry, I've done it since I've been on the board. It's just how I was trained at the phone company.
Fractional scores, but that's
Sorry.
fine. And those were taken into account, and I did check the math on these sheets when we went through. Personal characteristics, 4.78, professionalism, 4.75. Board support relations, 4.75. Community leadership, 4.89. Financial management, 4.88. Planning organization, 4.48. All above an A.
What's the overall score?
The overall score, correct.
If you don't mind.
4.94. So I think it is fair to say that this board, I think I can speak on behalf of all of us to say that we're all extremely pleased and continue to be extremely pleased with your performance on behalf of us and on behalf of the town. And that we look forward to working with you going forward and doing even greater things together. I'm sure some of my colleagues might have things they want to pitch in, or...
I'll second Mr. Gurley's motion.
Second
I
the
think you've
motion?
done a great job, but we'll see.
Okay, there's a motion, it's seconded.
Can I just, this is something that initially was tasked to myself, and because of my personal family plans, and Adam, Mr. Chapdelaine, to his benefit, had a timeline set in place that before I finished my term as chair, this could and should have been done. But in light of circumstances that just kind of popped onto my plate, I basically asked Mr. Curro, and it really wasn't asking, I think maybe it was just volunteering him, if he could step in and finish up this process, because my calendar didn't allow it. So I do want to thank the chair for, not that this isn't something you're familiar with, because you've done it with the school committee and the superintendent, and you've done it in your day-to-day business life, but
We're doing it just this week.
But I really just handed you this big platter that, I just basically had mashed potatoes on it and nothing else. So I do appreciate you picking up this on my behalf and seen it through, and the way, you know, working with Ms. Malloy and Mr. Chaplain and anybody else. I just want to give you, honestly, my sincere thanks for making this happen.
Thank you. And, Mr. Manager, we should give you, in all fairness, the opportunity to...
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. To be brief, I'll say I really take this process very seriously. I take the feedback that you all provide through this process very seriously, and I find it very helpful to know where I need to pay more attention and where I need to improve in the year going forward. And I think, like any human or person, I also appreciate positive feedback. It helps to motivate me and let me know that I'm doing a good job and that the board is happy with the work that I'm doing. So thank you for paying such close attention to it. Thank you for doing it. Thank you, for as this mutual relationship we have with doing the evaluation every year is very important to me. And thank you. I'm very, very glad to be here.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Grilli, I'm sorry, I missed you.
Yeah, well, just, Adam recently became a Paul Harris Fellow because of his work with the Rotary, and one of the points that a very eloquent speaker who introduced him brought up
Who was that?
is one thing I'll never forget Andrew Flanagan telling me, is that another town manager said that among town managers throughout Massachusetts, that Adam is a real rock star. And, I think what a high compliment that is, but I think all of us in this town also think he's quite a rock star, and we're darn glad to have him.
Thank you.
Mr. Dunn.
It's late, and I can repeat everything that I wrote, but I'm very glad to have you. I think you do an excellent job.
Thank you, Dan.
Same.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Grilli, seconded by Ms. Mahan, to what, approve the summary report? Okay.
I guess, is that what it is?
Is that what the motion was?
Move receipt?
Move receipt, yeah, that's it,
Move
receipt,
receipt.
because I've already done the evaluation, right?
Motion's on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Excellent, thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Manager. Correspondence received, we have request enforcement of 25-mile-per-hour speed limit on Ridge Street by Drs. Nazila and Matthew Miller, 80 College Avenue, and request traffic speed slowing solution on Washington Street, Jeremy Keller, 600 Summer Street.
Move receipt?
Motion by Ms. Mahan,
Second,
seconded by Mr. Burren. Any referrals or?
I would say
if
to
you could
Corey's
refer-
department or town manager.
To Corey?
We're already working on Washington Street through the assistant town manager, so I think if you refer that matter, that would be fine, and referring the Ridge Street enforcement to
Perfect.
Carter Tow,
For
or to the
both
police
of them?
department would be fine.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, we'll make those referrals. Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Great. New business. Mrs.
What I
Kropalka.
have is just to remind everyone that June 27th is fast approaching, and we have the voting all day from 7 to 8 o'clock at night to elect a new state senator because of the sudden death of Kenny. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Heim?
A brief matter, update on the Mugar ongoing litigation. I want the board to know that we continue to be vigorously pursuing our rights in this matter, and will be filing a complaint in Superior Court so that we can get access to Department of Mental Health and DHCD records that we believe we need to prosecute our matter as best as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chaplin?
So I think several of my new business matters I'll leave for board members that I think might also want to share the same, among not just you, Mr. Chairman, but I think a few others as well.
Well, if I miss one, we'll
I'll
give you
come
another
back.
bite at the apple. Yeah. Mr. Grilli?
Well, he's not that great a rock star. You didn't give me anything to report on here under the business. So I have none.
Ms. Mahan?
Well, I want to thank the rock star, and I see you're on page 7 of the Beacon, testifying. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that, or it was the local advisory government commission, something about housing, or...
I think that's when we, I'm forgetting, I think at that meeting, I was there talking about the, I believe it was a commitment.
About addressing housing needs. It was on May 9th. Anyways, I
I
just
think
wanted to say
that's
the
where-
rock
that's-
star is on page 7 of the Beacon.
The MMA asked me to talk about the work of the Housing
Okay.
Corporation producing housing units in Arlington.
And then after the June 27th election, I can follow up with the appropriate people or persons, but if I could just bring, since Mr. Chapdelaine is very active with the MMA and some of its adjunct committees or commissions, there is a House bill on double polls. It's House Bill 1780. I don't know if you and/or Attorney Heim, if there's anything, if you have an opportunity and it's not too cumbersome, if you could just kind of take a look at that, see if there's anything that we could do, because it seems as though, and if there's something that can be written up and worked out with the chair, information presented to the board, because it's basically what we've been trying to do to get a little teeth into the double poll issue we have here in Arlington, so.
Absolutely.
That'll save me
1780.
1780, House 1780. I don't think it has a Senate number yet. And Mrs. Kropelka mentioned the election, so that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dunn?
Just one thing, which was Wednesday, Joe and I went to Minuteman, when Michael Ruderman was there as well, and there, I'm
Sue
sure.
Scheffler,
And Sue
Paul
Scheffler,
Schlickman.
Paul Schlickman,
And
Noaf, yeah.
Sean Garbely, Representative
Sean Garbely was there. And I am sure many students from Arlington, but I did not, none of them were announced by name. It was the groundbreaking for Minuteman, and I really enjoyed it. I think you all know that, like, for me, a lot of the, you know, like quote unquote the ribbon cuttings type things are not my favorite part of being a selectman, but at the same time, this groundbreaking for me was very exciting, and it was really good to see the, you know, there and talk about what has, they've been working on it for 10 years, and then literally putting, you know, the ceremonial shovels into the ground. So it was a really big moment, and and then just on my bike ride home, I think it was Tuesday night, I ran into somebody I know with his daughter who I had last seen when she was 2 years old, and he said, "Dan, guess what? She's just signed up. She's going to be at Minuteman in the fall. So she's going to have 2 years of the old building, then she's going to have 2 years of the new building." And I think it's totally cool. And so I'm really excited, and that's probably the longest new business I've ever done.
And I would like to say that both Ford Spalding, the chair of the building committee, and Superintendent McQuillan especially called out Dan for all of his work on making this happen, and they made sure that he was in the first wave of ground diggers.
Yeah, exactly. Success, as they say, success has many fathers, and in this case, there were at least 40
There were,
fathers
but
and mothers.
you got one of the special shout-outs.
But did you get to keep the shovel?
No.
That's right, all the hot heads.
Absolutely not.
I've got a few myself, but they don't let you keep them.
Mr. Byrne?
Today I was happy to head up to the State House and accept on behalf of the town of Arlington a $178,000 grant, Green Communities grant from the Secretary of EEA. It was a really great ceremony. The Lieutenant Governor spoke, and I mean, it's amazing, you know, what this technical assistance is doing, and communities just keep signing on, and they're doing a lot of great work, you know, at the local level. And I think that it's also important to point out the other grant that we received, the Vulnerabilities Program, which I think is really complimentary. And I think it says a lot with community aggregation and all these grants coming to town. I think it's really showing where our priorities are, where there's a lot of you know, questioning at other levels of government, and I think it says a lot about the town of Arlington and our commitment to it here. So I was happy to do that today, and it was a nice little ceremony.
Excellent. There was so much that went on this past week. I'll only pick out two items, but I could talk at length about all the things that have been hopping around Arlington this week. On Saturday morning, my family was actually making fun of me because I was going down to the, it was kind of drizzling out, and I said, "Oh, I'm going down to the 10 a.m. like opening of Magnolia Park," and they said, "Well, it's raining out, Dad. You know, you're gonna have 2 or 3 people there." Adam was down there with his whole family. I swear there were at least 200 people showed up. They were coming from all directions. Every play structure was absolutely plastered with kids. You could barely see the new play structures. There's so many kids. The basketball court was getting, you know, active use by some of the older kids. All of the garden plots, I mean, people were out there actively gardening them already. There are 54 plots. They are all fully subscribed with a waiting list. The birdhouse, I think a lot of you know, there was a partnership between Arlington Public Art, the libraries, and the Park and Rec Commission. They have the birdhouses up there, including one that looks like the fire station, and they're beautiful. They're in a pollinator field. They got the Girl Scouts involved to help paint the poles and paint the signs. The Boy Scouts are involved. We all remember the tree. Well, they're making a table out of the tree. They milled it on site, and they're going to be setting it up on site there. It was absolutely a benchmark standard for an urban park, and it was there was so much joy there with all of the kids and the young families. And I could see this wave. I can see why we've been struggling with the enrollment issues, because there were a lot of little kids down there. And it was great.
Professional opinion.
In my professional opinion, it was hard to believe I was at that stage only 10 years ago. The only other thing I wanted to mention was also in CCA, and I should have mentioned it when we discussed the buck slip. There was an information session here the other nights, and I don't know, probably about 40 or 50 people. 50 people came out for the information session. There is the issue of opting out, and I know some people will want to do that. But there is also the option, I want to remind people, of opting up. And there is an option to opt up to 50% green energy, and there's an option to opt up to 100% green energy. And I want to say that I called Dynegy today. Now, I have solar installation, but there's still a portion that is not covered by the solar, and I wanted to opt up to the 100% green. It was painless. It was very, very simple. When I called Dynegy, they were quick to answer the phone. They, you just give them your address, your account number on the Eversource, and it was painless to opt up to the 100%. And you can always back off with no penalties or whatnot if you change your mind later on. And I just wanted to put that out there and make people aware that that is an option as well for those who are interested in the green aspects. So I think this is going to be a great program. So that is all the new business that I wanted to cover. Now, did I miss anything that you really wanted?
We all covered it all.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Ms.
Second.
Munn, second by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?